Yo guys, welcome to the Zelda fiction. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with Hanabi? Part 1. Huge shout out to Robin.exe for this story. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. It was supposed to be a simple C-rank mission, a mission to protect a bridge builder and bring him to his home, to the land of waves. Heck, even being the first time they have ever left the Leaf Village. Team 7, which consists of Naruto Uzumaki, Sakura Haruno and Sasuke Uchiha with their sensei Kakashi Hatake. Accepted this low-rank C mission from the Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen and Naruka, Team 7 former academy teacher. After a tantrum being made by Naruto about wanting a better mission or asking for a mission to really test out his skills. Which was quite annoying for the other two members of his team, but were also secretly agreeing with the boy that these D ranks they've been on were nothing but chores. Sakura out of the three was the most in agreement as she silently nodded her head about the whole doing chores and wasting their talents. When the Hokage finally agreed and stated how they do have enough experience for one low-rank C mission. The team met up with the client Izuna the bridge builder and made their way to the land of waves, however things weren't as they seemed. Not soon after leaving the village and good 20 minutes away from Konoha. The gang were suddenly attacked by rogue ninjas who hid themselves within some puddles and attacked the group. During the scuffle and great effort between Kakashi and Sasuke, they managed to subdue them and gather information from the ninja. Though during this process and freezing up, Naruto got injured and gotten poison from the enemy ninja's weapons. But this did not stop Naruto of wanting to continue with the mission and recklessly cutting open the wound to rid of the poison. The gang continue onward and proceeded with the now B-rank mission. Their troubles and luck though, resumed to get worse. As the next opponent they faced off against was a Jonin missing ninja named Zabuza. That they immediately encountered after landing and arriving to the land of waves. Though thankfully and with some smart thinking and begrudgingly teamwork between Naruto and Sasuke. They were able to distract and defeat Zabuza's water clone and Zabuza himself. Into releasing Kakashi from his water prison jutsu and fend off the Jonin after getting his techniques copied by Kakashi. Sadly, the man fled from the scene and went into hiding as well, possibly recovering from his wounds. Want to run that by me again? Sasuke Naruto's sudden voice echoed within Sakura's thoughts, bringing her back from her musing and then deadpan at the duo in front of her. Hearing the blonde knucklehead slamming his hands down onto the table. If it weren't for me throwing that shuriken towards you, Kakashi-sensei would have still been in that jutsu. Argued Naruto while thrusting his arm forward at the Uchiha, causing some of the silverware to scatter and shake on the wooden table. Making the long pink hair Kunoichi to sigh lightly as she leered over to Sasuke, fighting back the urges of fangirl out to the cool ninja, but decided to stay quiet. As if she were to speak. It will just add more fuel to the ever-growing argument happening between the two teammates. So much for teamwork. Whatever happened to our agreement? Despite what kind of stupidity or mistakes we make, we'll still work together on this. Then closed her eyes and sighed. Especially now that we know Zabuza isn't done and might come back after a week. Groaned the girl while then shaking a bit when Sasuke smugly responded back to the blonde hair orange jumpsuit wearing ninja. You heard me Naruto, despite us getting lucky with the shuriken. You would have easily failed the mission with your constant freezing up or stupidly running head first into danger. Countered Sasuke coldly while folding his hands. He's right, Sakura silently thought to herself while taking a sip of her drink that Tsunami brought over and poured into her cup. The girl thanked the mother who smiled and continued moving around the table and pour some tea for Kakashi, who was keeping a close watch of the two arguing boys. Naruto gritted his teeth and stood up with a fist bump forward. Oh yeah, who was it that nearly cut himself with a kunai because of the kill intent? Then slams both hands down back on the table. And for the record Sasuke, if I didn't constantly run forward to grab my headband, I would have never be able to face my fears of fighting a tough opponent. Which got us the victory. He's right, Sakura added into her thoughts while looking at Naruto. Much as it was stupid going for his headband, he still kept his word and oath. Of never running away, and honestly, if he didn't go head first at Zabuza. None of us would have a clear head of what to do without being scared of facing against Zabuza. And so, you honestly believe somebody like you would have handled a guy like Zabuza? Face it Naruto, without me being there Kakashi your weak fast self would have jeopardized the mission stated Sasuke while standing up from his chair, having it move back a bit. Making Sakura, who was looking between the two to sweat drop and gulp. Not liking the high tension the two were giving off from another, while her mind was racking on which side was right and figured to go bluntly with. They're both right in a odd way of thinking it. Now you two settle down, there is already enough tension as Kakashi tried to settle the two down, but groaned as he went unheard and the two boys continued with their argument and getting close to their faces. Making the man to shake his head and hanging it down. Seriously, what happened to that drive from the bell test? He's just glad Sakura isn't jumping in to add insult to injury by constantly agreeing with Sasuke. Honestly, out of the two, she so far is the most sane person who understands their situation. Oh, and you would have done better than what I thought up with Sasuke. Ha ha, you were scared to even step forward and only did so because I took action. Naruto then grinned beepily. I guess the Uchiha couldn't do much without having someone there to help make his decision. What did you? Sasuke growled out and got into Naruto's face. You forget who you're talking to, Naruto. Uchiha don't need to fear anything or having to use someone weak like you to help them make a decision. Though pauses a bit to think over it before grinning. So you think Uchihas are scared, huh? What about you? This had Sakura and Kakashi widening their eyes at what was coming, especially the sudden coldness going through their bodies. No, he wouldn't. He knows Naruto is sensitive about that stuff. Were the thoughts going through both Kakashi and Sakura's mind, watching Naruto darkening his expression at Sasuke. Having a gut feeling the boy is going to bring up about his family or possibly those related to the name Uzumaki. If you're so positive that Uchiha are scared and need help, what about you, huh? Where's your family or where are the Uzumakis, huh? Growled Sasuke, touching very dangerous waters now. I haven't seen or heard anything about your family in anything, Naruto, not a single one. He said beepily, getting Tazuna to glare lightly at the Uchiha, starting to hate this kid's guts. Hell, even Tsunami, who was washing the dishes and cleaning a bit, was overhearing the conversation and is beginning to get bit disgusted with this boy. Aren't they supposed to be a team? Did they not agree to help protect her father from being killed by Gato and finishing the bridge? Even Inari, who was halfway down the halls of his house, was overhearing the conversation that was happening. About ready to give his usual banter and whining about them needing to give up, but for some reason the conversation was more interesting than what he was about to say. Then flinch when Naruto growled out, don't you step over your boundaries, Sasuke. You know nothing of what my family would or could have been, all we know they're keeping their achievements a secret. Shouted Naruto. Then crossed his arms and smugly smiled with a raised head. Honestly, I think your family is the poor one here, stated Naruto, which now he was touching on dangerous turf as Sakura just face-palmed and slammed her head onto the tabletop. But couldn't help but stifle a snort when Naruto brought a very strong point. If it weren't for me deciding that we helped the old man and making sure to keeping our promise of finishing the mission, then thrust an arm forward at Sasuke. Without seeing how much this village needs help. We would have never see the conditions. Then snicker, thus I believe us Uzumaki you seem to want to dismiss have more heart of gold than the Uchi. And that is when things went spiraling, right before Naruto could say heartless for the Uchiha. Sasuke in a snap and losing his cool. And before Kakashi or Sakura could even react, grabs the edges of the table with one arm to support him, jumping upward and then swinging a very powerful right kick into Naruto's chest. Sending the boy flying backwards into a nearby wall, then followed up by land onto the table and leaping off the table and delivers a hard right punch into Naruto's cheek. Sending the boy right out the wooden door and into the open front yard of Tazuna's house. You take that back, you bass, Sasuke was about to say and continue his assault before being grabbed by Kakashi and Sakura. Sasuke-kun, what are you doing? Settle down, this isn't the way to behave or act against a teammate. Sakura screamed out, struggling from keeping the boy in place. Looking out towards the downed Naruto, who was hissing and writhing in pain from his chest and cheek. Knock it off now, you had no right to attack Naruto, Kakashi wanted to say, but couldn't keep Sasuke from shutting his mouth as the boy whipped his head at him with a dark look. I have every right to knock some sense to a guy who has no right to speak about my family. He knows nothing about my family, knows nothing about my clan. Shouted Sasuke as he was doing everything to break free from their hold and faces forward. What does he know? He has no family, he has no one to look to or even have those close to him. He is ignorant and stupid to believe he knows what a clan is. Sasuke continued. Sasuke, stop. Sakura tried screaming out as Naruto, who was in a kneeling position, shook himself and then widened his eyes and felt everything being muffled, with Sasuke's words echoing throughout his ears. He's a nobody, that's all he is, and nobody will ever seen him but a nobody, as well as that stupid Uzumaki name. The damage was already done before Kakashi finally decided to punch his gut really hard and knock the boy out, hoping that will calm him down and cool his jets. Force after doing so, and Sakura, who was leaning the now unconscious body of the Uchiha onto the floor, went to turn her head at Naruto. Hoping to help calm him down or keep his cool or getting depressed over what Sasuke said. Granted, it was both boys' faults for bringing up the Uchiha clan and the Uzumaki family into their heated discussion, but before she could help the blonde ninja. He was already gone, making Sakura to feel her heart sink just ever lightly and felt the winds blowing against her bangs. Naruto, she questioned and began scanning the area. As Tazuna and Tsunami came on out to see if they could help ease Naruto's pain, but couldn't find him. Naruto. Sakura called out and walked forward a bit and then turned her attention to Kakashi. Kakashi-sensei, should we Which the man shook his head. I say let him be Sakura, Naruto emotions will be all over the place. I think it will be best if he goes and let off some steam. Then sighs while looking down at his clutches with a shake of his head. He knows where we are and no doubt, he is going to take his anger out by training over the night, then turns to his right at Izuna with a sheepish smile. Sorry about all that, they are really good kids and ninjas, it is just. Kakashi then chuckled when the man smirked and waved it off as Sakura turned back towards the woods and road Naruto possibly ran off into. Listening to the two adults converse one another. No worries, after the attack with the brother ninjas back on Land of Fire and then coming into contact with Zabuza. I wouldn't be surprised if everyone's hearts were racing and trying to ease their nerves of possibly another attack from the sword-wielding man. Chuckled the man as Sakura drowned out the conversation and sighs, with bit of a pout and placing her hands onto her hips. I swear, why do boys have to be so difficult, they get so emotional sometimes. Makes you wonder how they even process over what they say. Stated the girl, though couldn't help but feel bit sorry for Naruto. Not too much, but just enough to worry about him as a friend and teammate. You better be alright when you come back, Naruto. And looks up towards the surrounding trees and forest around her as winds picked up a bit and began whipping lightly against the branches and water nearby the house. Having a surprisingly nice and calm air about it, bristle and cold, yes, but very soothing from the feel of things. Making the girl believe things will definitely be alright and that she shouldn't worry too much about Naruto. No doubt the knucklehead will come back and boast about how he can now walk up and down the tallest tree without tiring out. Come on Sakura, help me get duck hair here into the house and in a bed, don't want him having a cold. Kakashi called out with a snicker. Having Sakura get a tick mark and swiftly spins around and shouted towards the man about calling her Sasuke, that nickname. Before blushing in embarrassment of the teasing tone he was having as she puffed her cheeks out and decides to go and help. Though couldn't help but look out into the woods one last time before stepping onto the porch and help carry Sasuke inside, curious if Naruto will remember to come back to the house and sleep for the night. Be bad if he suddenly passes out in the middle of the night, training and then waking up late next morning. Forgetting about the job of protecting Izuna at the bridge. That will definitely be annoying, but considering what time the old man goes to the bridge. Maybe, just maybe, Naruto will wake up in time to head to the house, grab his things and rush towards the bridge. Just enough to finish with the mission and hopefully be there in case Zabuza does show up again. Out into the training spot that Team 7 had made for tree climbing exercise. Sounds of foot thumps and running could be heard, followed by some grunting and growling coming from what will be Naruto. Out of frustration and irritation, is continuing to train on the technique and to build up more of his chakra reserves when doing so. All the while leaping to and fro between each tree bark that were next to one another, slashing and cutting marks on the tree to see how high he can get. While jumping between two trees, then coming to a stop of a tree branch, wiping his long sleeve orange jacket over his forehead. Heavily panting and breathing as he stares out in the open of the brisk night sky. The boy then plopped himself down onto the tree branch and let out a low breath of irritation. Constantly hearing Sasuke's words echoing in his head about how his family, the Uzumakis, were a weak and pathetic family. Who probably died off and could not stand against any of those who went after them. Okay, his words, not Sasuke, but it was close to what the Uchiha asshole was thinking about. I mean, what does he know? He is like me, we have no family, no reason for him or that stupid pride of his to behave in a manner. Then leans against the bark of the tree, letting out another sigh while scratching his blonde spiky hair. Ugh, if he is that prideful. Then it must mean it runs in the family for all Uchihas to act all snide and prideful to anyone around them. And act like an ass, and then huffs as he crosses a leg over his left knee, tapping his foot lightly as he glares up into the stars. But it must be nice to at least have a family and getting to know them before they get killed. Unlike me, I was born without having any family at all. Then shook his head and threw himself upright. Gah, come on Naruto, get your head in the game. Don't let that duck butt get you down, you and your team are still on a mission. Zabuza is still out there and recovering his wounds, no doubt. He suddenly paused his speech and blinked his blue eyes a bit. Spotting what will be a light reflecting off from the distance. What's that? He murmured as he turned towards the moon and followed back to the spot where the flash of light was being reflected off. Wait, light reflecting must mean there is a window or something shiny on the ground. Then grins. Maybe a treasure or possibly an abandoned town. He glee out and began leaping off from the tree branch, heading back down to ground level. Making sure to kick jump off each bark when doing so, then lands onto the ground before going into a mad dash. Keeping a mental memory of what direction he was heading to. Going through some shrubs and bushes, leaping over some puddles and even jumping to branches over some lake sides in case he might accidentally fall into the water. Don't remember the old man saying there was any village nearby or houses out in the forest. Naruto thought to himself while running forward, then came to a conclusion that it might be a broken down village. That probably got destroyed or rummaged by Gato. forcing the people who were living in there to head into the village he currently knows right now and is starting to target them next. Well, whatever the village is, maybe I could find something interesting. His leg then got caught by a vine, causing his eyes to bulge out and both arms go flailing about as he shouts, "Ing," before hitting the ground and began rolling down the steep and mossy hilltop as he was grunting and shouting out many different incoherent words that consist of ow, prickles, sticks and mud as he finally hit the bottom with a loud plop and mud splashing around him. His body implant right into the ground and sinking ever slightly. Before pulling himself out of the ground by placing both hands up from the mud and back down against it to getting himself out. Then fell back onto his behind, groaning lightly and shaking himself out of it, along with throwing the mud off from his face and clothes. "Gah, grow stupid rude on the ground making me lose my balance, then getting me all muddy," growled the boy while getting up and flick his hands lightly. He then ruffled his blonde hair just in case there were mud in it, only to pause his forward movement. Spotting a wooden beam he nearly hit, causing him to look at it and then upwards. Huh? Then tilt his head as it seems to be what looks like a signpost. One that is made for entering a small village or town, but was deeply covered in moss. "So this is a town then, wonder what it reads," he said excitedly. "Shadow clone jutsu," he suddenly exclaimed and formed a hand sign to summon about 10 different clones of himself who appeared underneath him and began rising up in a tower, lightly leaning back and teetering forward before the real Naruto goes and places his palms against the signpost. 2 then sighing lightly, "Come on Reddit." One clone said, followed by the others doing the same with the bottom one grunting and hissing out how painful this was. "Alright, hold your horses," Naruto called down to them with a snicker, "just let me wipe the moss away," and he hang on to the sentence as he does his best to clean the sign much he could. Feeling the clones helping him out by carefully sidestepping to their left. Watching some of the grass falling down and hitting the ground, with larger chunks easily pursuing the smaller pieces. "Okay, here we go, welcome to the small settlement of Uzushiogakure, we're proud Yuzu," Naruto quickly took a breath in the clones as the original widened his eyes at the next words he read and could not believe his ears when he read, "The Uzumaki clan lives." Uzumaki, that's the same last name as though began flailing his arms and wildly swinging about when the other clones also got riled up and even excited at the name their caster read, almost immediately moving forward. Causing Naruto to slam right into the sign and with a dazed look, began falling backwards. With the other clones began yelping and shouting frantically of what's going on, to then all disappearing in a puff of smoke when they all fell backwards with the original, hitting the ground once more. Shouting in pain from the impact, grabbing the back of his head. Rolling left and right on the ground until the throbbing pain goes away, 2 immediately hops onto his feet. Pumping his arms in a crouching position and then threw them above his head. "Woohoo, this is so cool. I didn't know Uzumaki was an actual ninja clan." He beamed excitedly and began running forward in hopes of reaching the town. "I wonder what kind of ninja techniques they came up or what kind of skills they excel in," exclaimed the boy as he continued running and dashing through the long grassy and mossy path leading to the town. "I mean there has to be at least some of them here, right? They wouldn't bother building a town here if there aren't any." His tone began dying down and his running slowly goes into a halt. The boy wasn't expecting the scene in front of him, but half of him at the same time figured it would be like this. The settlement of Uzushiogakure was in ruins. The buildings or whatever left of the village were in ruins, broken down, and pieces of the foundations of said buildings were either completely gone, burned away or looked to be broken in half, with broken door frames hanging off from their hinges, window shutters clacking and rocking against one another or squeaking off from their screws. Curtains and shades that were hanging from the windows were ripped or even looking to be torn apart from either war or of old age. The young orange jumpsuit wearing ninja continued walking forward, gulping lightly at the sight before him. He seen how bad Land of Waves village was and how it was slowly coming to a crumbling town, no thanks to Gato and his thugs. But never in his life has he ever seen destruction like this. It was really heartbreaking and hard to swallow how bad the village was. He wondered if anyone even lived here anymore or if anything were still intact. He continued his trek through the broken down village and spotting some questionable black stains on some of the destroyed buildings or housing areas too, then stopping and approaches an open window with broken glass and shattered pieces on the ground, spotting what looked to be a very old looking doll. Perch against the windowsill, leaning lightly against the window as if pleading or praying that peace will come to the village or whatever happened here would stop, and it broke Naruto's heart thinking that a child was caught in the middle of what happened here. With a shake of his head and not wanting to think it over, the boy continued with his walk through the settlement and in hopes finding something useful or some sort of heritage he can bring back with him to the others or even show Kakashi sensei of what he found. Thus when he reached the end, or at least what he thinks might be the end of the village, the young ninja found what looked to be a library of sort, no doubt in his mind. Might have something valuable in it as he approaches the mossy plate in the doorframe. His smile grew wider as he gently swept the grass away and saw the writing of Ninja Scroll Library written on it. He silently cheered to himself and ran on inside the building. Of course, once inside and trying to fight back the feeling of being sick, as there were different kind of smells hitting his nose. Which most of them were of wet paper or rotten wood/books laying about, to even some of the scrolls. Which the scrolls sadly were not spared at all through whatever hell they went through. Anytime Naruto will approach one and grabs it from the shelf, it will immediately crumble into dust, break apart, or the paper will literally get torn from the slightest of movements. Making the boy's endeavors of coming here will be for naught, but he wouldn't give up that easily. As he goes and heads further into the store where the counter will be at, then hopping over it and began looking at the shelf behind said counter. Same results as the others, they were in poor condition and unable to get much reading done from them. That Naruto was beginning to become frustrated and bit upset that he wouldn't find anything relating to the Uzumaki clan. He then huffs lightly and turns around before leaning against the shelf. Eyes half open with bit of defeat, they had to at least have some scrolls of theirs hidden and protected from the enemy eyes, right? Iruka-sensei has said in class that most established clans, despite being wiped out or not, will usually house one secret scroll within their household or village. From ever being taken away, right? Sighing and kicking the broken chair in front of him, the boy was beginning to wonder or think that Sasuke might be right. But quickly shook the thought away and pulls away from the shelf. Hell, I let that smug bastard feel proud of himself of being right. I just gotta keep looking. Naruto said with excitement and began walking forward, places his hands onto the desk. After all, Uzumaki Naruto never, then hops over the desk and lands onto the flooring. Only for the entire floor beneath him breaks apart and opens up a hole, which had Naruto expression wide and frozen in place. Gives up looking, then slowly looks down below and watches the last couple pieces of the flooring fall beneath him and then screams for the answers. Followed by a low ow after crashing hard into the basement floor, thanking to Kami, it wasn't a long fall at all. Though the position he was in wasn't exactly comfortable, feeble position within a crate, legs and arms sticking outward with his butt deep inside the crate. Making him wiggle about and throwing himself forward before grunting and tugging at the crate. Then sighing out in relief from the box breaking and falling apart before uprighting and stretching out his back. Ugh man, glad the fall wasn't bad, but wished the landing wasn't rough on the back. He then looks up towards the hole he fell through. Noticing more of the wooden floor slowly falling down and hitting the floor before him. Taking note of the moonlight shining through one of the windows and followed the trail downward and in front of him, to them pausing and blinking his eyes couple of times. Taking note of a small memorial shrine in front of them, looking to be untouched by human hands, but also not at all destroyed or ruined through whatever the settlement went through. To even what seems to be a box, a pristine sapphire-looking jewel box set neatly and comfortably on what looked to be a throw pillow. The boy couldn't help but have a growing smile on his face, fumbling forward and tripping over some of the destroyed objects on the floor. Nearly tripping after he reached the small steps leading to the box. Kami, if you're watching and you're playing tricks with me, please let it not be. He snickered carefully as he could and afraid that the box will disappear if he does touches it. Felt his heart beating ever so against his chest, nervous that what he is about to touch was not real, his fingers flexing and twitching lightly as his hands hovers each side of the box. Then swiftly grabs it up into the air, eyes shut and holding in his breath deeply. Breathing only through his nose as he waits for any possibility of this being a dream, only to crack one eye open and then both eyes and began blinking them. Taking in the room he was in and saw that yes, it was indeed real and that the item in his hands right now is in fact a box left from the Uzumaki clan. Cheering and hopping up and down excitingly, the boy went ahead and leaps out of the hole and hidden basement of the library and rushes on out of the store. Where he can see the box better within the moonlight and happily sits down on the broken steps as he began moving and tilting the box lightly. Now let's see, how do I open this? He muttered. He didn't want to destroy it on the account it was a beautiful box. He also didn't want to rush opening it in fear he might break the lock mechanism. He did however picked up what looked to be indentation on each side of the box. Curious if there was a button he need to press in order for them to come out. Which he accidentally finds the button when he placed both hands on the top of the lid and felt something being pushed in. Releasing the outer parts of the cylinder holes with the top of the box then lightly opening up separately, to which Naruto smiled and carefully opens each end upward and gasps at the sight before him. It was a scroll. But not just ordinary scroll you find at libraries or learning jutsu. No, it was a thick expensive looking paper scroll neatly rolled up nicely within its box. Having now what looked to be ruby spheres on each end of the thick scroll, all the while feeling quite heavy as Naruto went and grabbed each end carefully, holding it upward and sideways to get a good look at the scroll. It wasn't massive like the Forbidden Scroll of Konoha. But it was pretty thick and no doubt was written in a way to save space and more compact, ready to be carried. I wonder if it's the village secret scroll. Naruto pondered, then hugs it close to his chest, before looking to his right and then left, leaning back very lightly as he scanned the area once more. Then snicker and began laughing, I am sure nobody will mind me reading this. After all, I am in Uzumaki only fair eye. Uzumaki Naruto learns one of the jutsus in this scroll. He chuckled though softly places it onto his lap, then placing his hands together in a prayer-like fashion. I hope you all won't mind me reading through your scroll, out of respect and honor your duty of protecting it from others. And lightly nods, before grabbing the scroll and just opens it up slightly. Scanning through the contents and as usual, the boy couldn't understand most of the writing. Well, he does somewhat, but most of it weren't registering in his mind and couldn't make out some of the handwriting. Despite some of the writing looked pretty easy to read, just without good lighting he couldn't figure them out. The only 4 things he managed to read out of the scroll were Bubble Bomb Jutsu, Crescent Wind Jutsu, Rapid Wind Palm Jutsu and Chakra Chains. Those were the 4 he was able to read, which he couldn't help but grin figuring he will get started on learning one of the jutsu. But the one Chakra Chains Jutsu seemed to be the simplest one yet. All he had to do from what he can read is activate the True Beast Awakened Jutsu and he's golden. Now where is that? He muttered out softly as he began scrolling through what he opened of the scroll, aha wow not that far in too. This is cool, guess they really wanted to be sure those who reads this can find the jutsu, now let's see. True Beast Awakened Jutsu allows a Jinchuriki to unlock their ultimate potential when they use this jutsu. Note. The bearer must be a Jinchuriki in order to use it. Which Naruto with a puzzled look rubs the top of his head lightly, repeating the words Jinchuriki. What the hell is a Jinchuriki he muttered and shook his head. Probably just a fancy word of a Uzumaki having this technique. He grinned and began placing the scroll down and giggles. Well then all I have to do is do the jutsu and see if it works. Now let's see, in order to use this jutsu. The caster must be sure their chakra reserves aren't empty and fully healthy for this to work. Or else they will suffer from chakra exhaustion. Which he nodded, knowing quite well how that felt and figure better to be safe and munch down a chakra pill. He went and grabbed his weapon pouch, pulling out the blue-looking pill. Kakashi-sensei told us to stock these in only emergencies, especially when running low on chakra in a fight. And grimaced lightly, recalling how bad the store owner treated him and nearly tripling the prices all because of him having the 9-tailed fox inside of him. Well, I could only afford one of these, but since this is my family's secret scroll, it is kind of an emergency. He grinned and pops the pill into his mouth and ate it, though began spitting and gagging at the horrible taste. After shivering from the bad aftertaste, the boy went ahead and let out few calming breaths before looking down towards the scroll. Alright, let's see once the user is healthy and have refilled their reserves. Use the following hand signs to start the jutsu. Which Naruto then continued, please also note that you might have trouble doing this alone, so be sure to either have great reserves or make shadow clones to help you out. Which Naruto grins. I like this scroll already. I do in fact can make shadow clones, alright then. The boy went ahead and made what was written on the scroll, 4 shadow clones of himself. To which then the clones nodded at one another and the original as they then looked down at the scroll. First set of hand signs end with a tiger sign. Naruto read out loud as he goes and began doing the 5 hand signs. Which all of the clones including Naruto began feeling a sudden surge going through their bodies as the boy finishes up with the first set. Feeling somewhat a burning sensation around his stomach where the 4th Hokage's seal was as it began glowing and appearing onto the boy's stomach. Next one, end with a dragon sign. The second read off and began doing the hand signs. Deep within Naruto and the seal, the demo known as the 9-tailed fox, opened his eyes suddenly and began feeling funny along with his energy for odd reasons. Beginning to fade and get extracted away from him, causing pain within him as he struggled lightly and clawing against his cage. Trying to figure out what the hell is going on, only to feel another sudden surge going through not only him but his jailer as well. What the hell, what the fuck are you doing to me, kid? What kind of jutsu are you using here? I writhed and continued thrashing about within the seal, hearing the boy's voice more clearly now and hearing how the 3rd shadow clone was beginning another set of hand signs, causing the 9-tailed fox to widen his eyes at the sudden realization. Wait, are you doing the forbidden technique of the Uzumaki clan? Where the hell did you ugh? He then felt more of his energy being zapped away and bubbling about within Naruto's own body and chakra coils. He snarled out and sneered, figuring where this was going, but not entirely sure what's happening. He will however not go down without a fight. As the last clone finished up his own set, so you want to make it difficult on me, huh? Fine. I will return the favor and make sure that things will be difficult for you. Want my power that badly, do ya? Alright, then I'll make sure you get the whole consolation prize. You bastard. He screamed out along with Naruto also screaming as he heard the voice and felt his shadow clones disappearing immediately, while then getting covered and consumed by what seems to be red chakra covering and wrapping rapidly around Naruto, bubbling up and mixing in with now blue chakra from Naruto, with the nine-tailed fox's own chakra, fusing and melding together before shooting off into the sky. Radiating off a spectacle of blue and red beam of light before dispersing and firing off in different directions, to then being pulled back and shooting back down straight towards Naruto's body, with his eyes widening at the sight before blinding light engulfed the entire village and Spotty was in a dome of light. Causing flashing images rapidly going through Naruto's thoughts and mind. Some unknown shadowy faces began popping up with figures of what looked to be females, hovering around him and giggling happily with bright smiles, while pressing and rubbing up against him. Before shooting off into shadow-like beams, then a red angry glowing energy appeared before him and opened up their mouth far and wide to suck him inside of it and closing their mouth down. Encasing him within the energy with animal-like features, beginning to grow and expand on the withering shadow boy, only to then be comforted and hugged by a blue-like figure. Wrapping their arms completely around them, shrouding them in nothing but warmth and comfort whispering out the words, "I am always with you and watching you." And then flash of light. Naruto's voice went silent as the boy was teetering and wobbling, struggling to keeping his balance as he was fumbling forward. Energy-like aura began flashing and disappearing around him, with fox-like body parts appearing and disappearing rapidly through the flashing lights before completely going away. With Naruto defeated and tired eyes flashing between red and blue, before returning to blue and closes them as he topples forward and hits the ground hard and fast. Completely passing out on the floor, with last bit of flashing blue and red aura around his body, began swirling and fusing together, and then shot down into him. The next day has arrived with the early sun beginning to seep through the trees and bushes surrounding the Tazuna family household. Lot of things happened over the night, along with some conversation being made between Inari and Kakashi last night. Of the boy being quite interested of what happened between Naruto and his friend, while even asking the sensei of why it is that boy did not want to give up on the village. In which had made Inari have quite the change in views and understanding of Naruto's reasoning to helping out. Granted, he couldn't help but ask why it is that Sasuke and the blonde ninja seem to always get on each other's nerves, only to laugh with Kakashi, stating how they considered each other rivals and that they just tend to take things too literal and bit too far. After said and done, Kakashi, along with Sakura and Sasuke who were waking up with him, began heading to the living room, only for Sakura who was yawning and stretching out her arms. Comb her hands through her hair a bit before pausing and blinking her emerald eyes. Naruto didn't come back. She openly stated, alerting Kakashi to the girl and then the living area. Hate to say the boy did not come back at all last night, Tazuna began saying while wrapping his backpack around his shoulders. I volunteered to staying up long I could last night in case he ever made his return. Then grunts and places his hat on. Sighing in concern, but he never did and I'm starting to worry about him. Informed the man as Tsunami was in agreement as she silently nodded her head. I am bit worried as well. Kakashi who rubs the back of his neck and tilting it lightly towards the right hummed. Well, if he did train all night with the tree exercise. We could go and pick him up, bring him back and then head out to the bridge letting him get the needed rest. Informed the man. Making Sakura to leer lightly at the sensei bit suspiciously. Sensei, I know it will be good for Naruto to get some rest, but if you haven't forgotten. Zabuza might make a comeback today and strike. She informed while moving her arms apart. We will probably need Naruto there to help us fight off. Why should you care? Sasuke suddenly interrupted, making the girl to look over at him. If sensei wants the loser to rest. Then let him rest, as the boy closed his eyes and began heading towards the door. Naruto will be useless if he is exhausted and probably make things difficult by constantly yawning or blowing his cover with how tired he is. Muttered the boy as Sakura grunts a bit. Getting a little bit irritated with this attitude of his, despite how cool he is. The boy was starting to become what she always calls Naruto annoying. Listen here, Sasuke. Sakura was about to inject, only to feel Kakashi placing a hand onto her chest. Causing her to hum and look up at him. Kakashi-sensei. Sakura, then I smiled. If our concern for Naruto and if it makes you feel better. Why not go out and find him, help him come back to the house and recover. The tilt his head. This way you can let him rest for good half hour, which should be enough for his kind of energy and stamina. Then the two of you come rushing over to the bridge, okay? He then ruffled her hair a bit, causing the girl to grunt and groan lightly at the same time sighing in defeat. Alright, I see where you're coming from. Then waxed Kakashi hand away as she went ahead and began marching forward. I am only doing this because of the mission. Not that I am concerned or worry about the knucklehead's life. She exclaimed and exits the house while closing the door behind her. Leaving the three adults there standing, with Tazuna humming and then snicker, before grinning towards Kakashi. I take it she does care and you want her to find Naruto, so this way the boy won't forget. He joked, earning an eye smile from the silver hair ninja. I have no idea what you're talking about, Izuna, but shall we get going? He then bow lightly and move his arm towards the door. I don't think we'll be wise if we kept Sasuke waiting, despite how much patience he has. The boy does have a track record of being irritated when waiting. He snickered with the man, watching Izuna with a boastful laugh, saying his goodbyes to Tsunami, who giggled and waved them off. Seriously, what does Naruto get the guller idea to vent out and train all night? Muttered a irritated Sakura, who was walking down the grassy road that will take her to their training spot. Lightly stomping and moving her arms forward and back, glaring ahead. Not like he's done this before and get on everyone's nerves, I mean come on. Then threw her arms into the air and slams them to her sides. All he ever does is cause trouble or make trouble for everyone, can't count the many times he will disappear whenever we do D-rank missions. Doing things on his own or making claims he improved a lot more than Sasuke. Then the girl leered her eyes to the left as she continued her trek. Speaking of Sasuke, what's gotten into him to go and attack Naruto like that, and then sighs. Yes, granted, Naruto was stepping on dangerous turf when it came to Sasuke's clan, but what does he know? Then hums lightly with a bit of a worried look. I doubt Naruto at the time knew what happened or what caused his entire clan to be killed. Hell, everyone at school only knows he survived, and that's it. Then hang her head down as the subject began moving to Naruto's family. Then again, it was a low blow for Sasuke to bring up Naruto's family like that. Sakura then stops walking after a while, then looking around a bit before crossing her arms and closing her eyes. If anything, and thinking it over now and considering Naruto's feeling, I think the only real family he has is Iruka-sensei and the third Hokage, not once I ever seen the boy with anyone. And then open her eyes halfway, feeling foreign emotions bubbling up as she thought over the boy some more. No mom or dad, a kid living in a village orphaned and nobody to care for him. And sighs as she continued her walk. Recalling the past of their younger childhood days, if anything and only mother-like figure I ever saw Naruto with was with Haku's stepmother Mia, she stated, and recalled the woman. Honestly, when Haku began attending to the academy and came with her mother on Parents' Day, we usually see Mia and Haku bringing Naruto along to act like a guardian for the boy and attend those days with him. To fill in after that, nothing really. She then giggled lightly and smiled, remembering the first school day where Mia had accidentally gotten separated from Haku. And that Naruto was the hero of the day when the boy ran into the mother at Ichiraku's ramen shop. Now thinking about it, if it wasn't for Naruto figuring out where Haku disappeared after getting lost, the two would have never reunited and get back together. The girl then stops after coming to the clearing of their training spot, looking around a bit and having a smile. I remember Mia never once stopped thanking Naruto if wasn't for his big then wide in her eyes and began rapidly shaking her head left and right. Whoa, where the hell all that came from, then began sheepishly chuckling. Come on, Sakura. It's not like you to talk about Naruto like that, let alone thinking of him in that kind of light. Then shrugs. All you could know is, he did it in a way to get probably food or toys from Mia. She told herself, trying to fight this bubbling and odd feelings that were surrounding the knuckle-headed ninja, only to pause and look around. Speaking of Naruto. Where the heck is he? I figured he would be passed out on the ground from training, but then felt little panic building up inside of her, becoming even more worry for the boy. Don't see him anywhere. Then immediately swung her hands apart. Easy, Sakura, easy, don't get too worked up yet. He is just probably behind some bushes. Yeah, he may have fallen asleep on a branch and fell off it. Chuckled the girl nervously, while imagery began playing in her head of it happening too, then becoming worried and changed to possibly Gato thugs getting to the boy. Having the girl to widen her eyes and once again, rapidly shook her head. Knock it off, girl. No way Gato knows about us or even knows where we train. Scolded the girl, while panting and breathing heavily. Trying so hard of why it is, she's getting so worked up over the boy. Arg. Then grabs her head, why is he such a pain? Making me worry like this should never make a girl be stressed out over something simple, as then ruffled her hair a bit and screamed lightly. Come on, Sakura, focus and stop constantly thinking over the worst possible thing to happen. Then began breathing in and out, feeling her heart aching for the blonde ninja's safety. She then began biting her lower lip and began scanning the area. Alright, then comes to a pause, smiling brightly. She spotted the boy's kunai couple distance away from one of the trees and looking to be near a vine on the ground. Taking this as a clue or a hint of what happened. She walks on over towards the weapon and knelt down to get a better look, then grins happily, seeing it definitely belonged to Naruto. Yes, this is definitely Naruto. There's still some fresh bark etched on the tip of, then paused and looks up, hearing some rustling and moving within the bushes and shrubs in front of her. Blonde spiky hair began peering out from within the large bush and revealing what looked to be a grunting Naruto. Naruto. Sakura suddenly yelled out. Oh hey Sakura. Naruto stated, a little dazed, and waves at her. What are you doing out here? though grunts when she suddenly runs towards him and brought him into a tight hug, causing him to blink his eyes confusingly of the action. "Oh Naruto, you're alright, I was worried." That Sakura then stops and pulls away from the hug, quickly adjusting herself and clearing of her throat to then trying to hide her blush. I mean, everyone back at Izuna's house are worried about you. Including Kakashi-sensei." She corrected herself, watching the boy to stare at her a bit and grins. Understanding why she was pretending not to worry, gotta keep that image up of liking Sasuke and not him after all. Making Sakura's blush grow even more from watching that smile of his cross his face, with her heart thumping faster. "Oh. Sorry about that, was trying to cool off from last night." Then Naruto sheepishly rubs the back of his head. "I was going to head back, but got distracted when I spotted," though paused his sentence and froze his hand from reaching into his bag to show the girl of the Uzumaki scroll, but decided against it. At least until after the mission is done, he will show the scroll. So instead he went and turned halfway, pointing down the path where he fell. "A village down this winding road. It was really cool," he announced, making Sakura to tilt her head lightly and raised a brow. "Well, cool in a sense that I didn't expect one to be there." Then moves both hands to his right with a chuckle. "Not so cool as that, it's in ruins and destroyed from," then hums. "Decaying." Which Sakura blink her eyes and nods. "Yeah, that's correct way of saying it." "If the buildings were falling apart?" she asked, bit surprised he knew what kind of term to use. Especially when asking that, he nods with a grin. "You can tell me about it later, Naruto. We need to head back and get to Kakashi-sensei and Izuna," she exclaimed and nudged her head. Right, Zabuza might come back today, almost forgot," Naruto exclaimed and happily began running ahead with the girl, who was also running next to him and once in a while looking in his direction, looking over his condition and judging to see if he needed any sleep or not. Which was making Naruto pick up the girl's eyes on him, having him to hum and shift his blue eyes at her. "Something wrong, Sakura? You look like you're worried about something." This had her blinking her eyes and then face forward. "Well, I'm a bit worried that you may be tired or exhausted from all that training last night. Even Kakashi stated that you may have exhausted your chakra," but then looks at him again. "Yeah, some dirt and light bruising on the cheek, but he looks completely healthy and well rested. Did you fall asleep at the village or something?" she asked. Naruto, who heard this question, hums and look up in thought, recalling everything that happened last night before using the beast awaken jutsu from the scroll. "I may have fallen asleep there by accident," he stated honestly, making Sakura to leer lightly, having him frantically wave his hands jazz-like, which I am totally fine really. And didn't even exhaust myself during training too. I am completely a-okay." He smiled, having Sakura heart thumping once again as her face was heating up a bit before she quickly look ahead and hums in understanding. As the two continued running and dashing through the forest back to the house, just silence and warm sun rays hitting down on them. Silently enjoying the peace for a bit as Sakura shifted her gaze to Naruto and then back forward. "Hey Naruto." Naruto hummed back while shifting his gaze at the girl. "Back when we were kids and when Haku first migrated into Konoha with her stepmother Mia," she began asking while biting her lip, wanting some sort of proof he helped her find Haku without any means of being repaid. "Did you really knew where Haku was after she disappeared from school?" she asks, and watching with bit of a smile from noticing Naruto's was laughing and smiling brightly. "Of course. You would not believe it, but Haku asked me where she could find rare flowers that day, wanting to get a gift for Mia-sensei. That I told her I usually spot weird-looking flowers at the Hokage monument." And then thumbs to himself. "I remember it perfectly and still laugh at how Mia-sensei would not take no for an answer. To repay me and had me staying at their house for a whole week." "Really, a whole week?" Sakura asked with wide-eye expression. "No wonder you were so boastful during that week." Then giggled with a blush. "You could not get rid of that smile of yours. Half the kids and Iruka-sensei were curious if you found something really cool." Giggled the girl while laughing alongside Naruto. "Guess could say you did." And faces forward, with Naruto happily nodding and agreeing with the girl. "Course it was hard to getting Haku to stop calling me stepbrother when Mia jokingly called me son." Naruto joked and laughed while looking down fondly at the ground. "I really owe them a lot honestly, or at least Mia-sensei and Iruka." "Why Iruka, besides helping you out in school and such?" Sakura asked and then tried hard not to trip up on her own feet from laughter when Naruto grins at her. "'Cause he always takes me to Ichiraku's whenever he is free," joked the boy, though both he and Sakura, after a while of running forward and about halfway to the house, came to a sliding halt when they heard what sounded like an animal in the distance crying out in horrible pain, and then silence. But the birds flying away and chirping frantically from the spot of the noise, making both girl and boy to stare openly in the direction before looking at one another and harden their looks. Nodding in silent agreement, the two of them sped off in the direction of the noise, making sure to leap into the tree branches in order to conceal themselves in case they might run into trouble. Arriving to the scene and nearly feeling like throwing up at what looked to be a recent hunted animal being killed in the middle of the roadway. Which then Naruto, who was looking around a bit, had noticed something odd about the path, hearing Sakura whining lightly of the smell, before turning her attention to Naruto when he suddenly said, "This road leads to Tezuna's house." "What?" The girl questioned and looked back down the road, then rising her head towards the village. "You're right then, whoever did." Then they both widened their eyes and faced each other. Gato. Two large and intimidating men were walking along the roadside, beginning to step on up to a wooden bridge that is leading up to Tezuna's house. Both of them hearing what sounded like a woman's voice calling out to somebody within the house. The two men chuckled and grinned lightly to themselves before staring at one another and raising their weapons, one with metal chains and the other with a giant wooden spiked club, as they continued moving forward and approaching the house with intent of causing harm. Couple miles back and only 5 minutes away from the house, Naruto and Sakura were rushing and dashing fast they could back to house. Hoping that they would be able to reach there in time. "Any ideas of how many we might face?" Sakura asked Naruto, who hummed and thought it over. His brain working double time and thinking things through before coming to a conclusion. "It might be 2 we will be facing, Sakura, considering how big the animal was." He called out to her and then turns his attention at the girl, who looked back. "But no doubt we can handle them," then gave a cheeky smile. "I got an interesting technique I want to try out that I made during my time training," he explained, making Sakura to raise an curious brow. But immediately faces forward when he smiled at her, causing the girl's heart to race again. Making her to growl at herself, "What the hell is wrong with me, why do I keep blushing whenever he smiles? Let alone why does my heart keep skipping a beat when he does smile at me?" The girl shook her head and sighs out before looking ahead. "Alright Naruto, but we better do this fast. Doesn't look like Inari," she began saying as they finally made it to the open area of the household, somewhat too late of stopping what appears to be thugs. Who had gone and captured the mother, while Inari, who was at the house shouting and screaming at them, to letting her go and even began charging. "Cause we don't have time." Sakura urgency shouted and began grabbing some kunais from her pouch, only to widen her eyes when she heard what sounded like chains being summoned. "Way ahead of ya, ninja technique. Chakra chains," shouted Naruto, and the next thing Sakura saw, while turning her eyes over at the boy, while nearly freaking out, was golden-like chains materialize around Naruto and began shooting forward. Straight at the thugs and began whipping, thrashing about and ensnaring anything they could touch. Which the chains, thanks to Naruto focusing solely on the weapon that was going to strike Inari down, was caught and wrapped immediately within the chains, then yanking it away from the thus. From Naruto shouting success and grabs onto the chain and pulls. "Sakura, go," he shouted, getting the girl out of her stupor and glares ahead. Immediately appearing behind the thug that had tsunami, causing him to turn slowly towards the kunoichi. Then letting out a loud grunt of pain when the girl did a flip kick right into his chair and sent high flying out into the waters, while backflipping away from the bigger thug who tried swinging a punch at her. Only for him to feel a foot picking right against the side of his face and sending him straight down towards the wooden floorboards from Naruto. To dispel the chains and grins excitingly when he did his famous hand sign. Shadow clone jutsu. And finished the rest of the fight between the two thugs, while Sakura goes and helps releasing tsunami from her binds. Then looking up towards the ninja with an astonished look on her face, eyes shimmering at how fast and swift Naruto was taking care of these goons. This is Naruto, right? When did he become this cool? The girl pondered and felt heat rising in her cheeks, while her heart continued to race and thump against her chest very loudly. Becoming entranced at the way Naruto was being precise at taking down the large thug with relative ease, to then knocking the two of them out. Making Sakura feel wind blowing against her bangs and long hair as the boy finishes things and was standing proudly over the goons. Was he always this determined to help others? She asked herself and felt chills go down her spine when he turned and faces at her and Inari. "That piece of cake, we took care of them easily, right guys?" Smiled Naruto as he gives them a thumbs up. "What did I told you, Inari, heroes always comes to help." But Inari grins with tears flowing down his face, nodding his head, and they always arrive in time. He added, having Naruto to laugh and chuckle, making Sakura to giggle with a nod. Smiling fondly at Naruto with a hand near her chin only to then widen her eyes and shook her head. "Whoa. Naruto, that is good and all, we came and help, but we gotta go and help Sensei and Sasuke," she suddenly shouted, alerting the ninja in front of her. Before he screamed out in suspense of almost forgetting, getting the girl to have a tick marked, "You forgot." Thus the two of them, after making sure to tie up the thugs and goons, went and explained to Inari that they have to get going and meet up with their fellow teammates. With Inari nodding and asking of what he should do while they do that. making Naruto to pause and look to Sakura, who threw some loaf of bread to the boy. Knowing Naruto hasn't eaten breakfast yet, turned back to Inari and grins. "You're already helping out by watching over your mom, make sure no more thugs comes to try and take her," he said and rubs the boy's head. And began darting out with Sakura, leaving the boy behind with his home. As Inari stares at the two rushing off to help their fellow teammates and then harden his eyes. "I will more than just that, Naruto, I will bring everyone to help out at the bridge." "Naruto?" Sakura asked as the two of them were now making their way over to the bridge, using every ounce of their chakra to boost their speed and agility to reach there, getting the blonde-hair ninja to stare over at the girl. No doubt she will be curious of where he learned such a technique. "Those chakra chains, you called them, how or when did you learn such a technique?" she exclaimed with wide eyes. "That didn't look like you were having little trouble controlling them." Naruto couldn't help but chuckle sheepishly while rubbing the back of his head. "Well, remember the town I told you that I found?" Which Sakura nodded. "Don't freak out, okay? But that town was once a settlement of the Uzumaki clan," he announced, making the girl shout what and nearly fall off a branch. Heading straight down towards the ground below, only to then hear those clattering noises of chains being shot out and wrapping all around Sakura, stopping the girl mere inches from the ground. Sakura stifled out a surprised moan when few of the chains went and slung between her legs and right up against her pelvis and cheeks, before letting out a yelp when she got pulled back up and back onto the tree branch. With the chains disappearing as Naruto looked at her and concerned, noticing the girl breathing bit heavy, who waved it off. "I'm good, Naruto," she breathed out before continuing to move forward. "But really, you found a settlement belonging to the Uzumaki clan?" Then whip her head with a smile. "Wait, you're from a clan? You're from an actual clan, Naruto?" That then faced forward and shook her head. Astonished and really happy to hear how Naruto found a small town belonging to his family/clan. "I know, right? I couldn't believe it myself," then snicker. "Granted, I was hoping to meet someone there, but considering the state the settlement was in." He then hops down to ground level, with Sakura doing the same as they began heading towards the bridge by foot. "I didn't get my hopes up, but did found a jutsu library." "And that's where you learned that technique?" Sakura was finding it hard to believe there would any ink to read from those scrolls, especially considering the way Naruto was describing the decaying village. It must have couple years since it was left damaged. "Find it a bit hard to believe there was any ink to read, Naruto." "No worry, Sakura, I did found something, but don't think I'm ready to show you or Kakashi yet. Till I can confirm my suspicion." Laughed Naruto, even getting Sakura to laugh and smirk at the boy. Amazed by how intelligent he was being of this. "I'm surprised," Sakura stated suddenly, making Naruto to hum and look towards her confusingly. "You'd usually rush things and get excited about finding something, that you immediately show it to everyone," she informed while coming to a slow stop since the two were arriving on the scene, but at the same time taking note of the hidden mist jutsu that was covering the entire bridge. The two were breathing and calming themselves down before Sakura continued speaking. "So it is sort of surprising how smart you're being about showing the scroll," she informed, getting a small laugh from Naruto. Getting Sakura to grin and then face towards the bridge, concern for Kakashi and Sasuke. "So seeing how you're able to do it twice and not looking to be using up a lot of chakra. Think you could do it again?" She grinned while grabbing a kunai. "You bet." Naruto grinned and then blinked his eyes at Sakura's sudden saddened look. "What's wrong?" he asked her, which she shook her head. "Nothing, I don't think I will be doing much fighting here. Kakashi will probably want me to protect Izuna." She sighed out but grins. "But I have no problem with that. You, Kakashi-sensei and Sasuke are more fighters here than I am." Then blushes bit crimson when Naruto thumbs up at her with a confident grin. "You kidding, Sakura? Defending and guarding Izuna is the most important job. That's the whole point of this mission, is to defend him after all." Plus, then leans close to the girl, who leaned back and gulps. Feeling more of her face heating up and heart pounding faster, trying to figure out what the hell is wrong with her. Then beamed brightly when Naruto then said. "You have kunes, right? You can start chucking and throwing them towards Kakashi-sensei, Sasuke and I. And I be sure to my chains to show where we are," then leans back and thumbs it himself. "No doubt the glow will give Zabuza position away." Which Sakura nodded with a pump arm, and thus the two went ahead and head on out towards the bridge. Where no doubt the fight is quite intense right now between their teammates and Zabuza, which hopefully when they get there, they will be able to even out the odds for their favor. And it was. Once Sakura and Naruto got to the bridge and began aiding and helping out their sensei against Zabuza, along with discovering that at some point in the fight and the time they arrived there, Sasuke has managed to get knocked out pretty hard after taking a heavy blow towards the chest and stomach from the blunt end of Zabuza's sword and leaving a good cut across the boy's body. At what surprised Naruto is when they arrived and saw the boy's condition. Sakura, even though she was in disbelief and getting quite worried over Sasuke, didn't freak out or rush on over towards the boy, especially when she took note of how the injuries weren't severe and told Naruto to go ahead, letting him know she will guide Tazuna over to the boy in case Abusa might finish him off after getting Kakashi distracted. Thus the battle with help of Naruto using his chakra chain sparingly and only to use it for signaling Sakura of their whereabouts, had the girl grabbing some kunais from her weapon pouch and began throwing them in that direction, causing Zabuza, who was trying to defend and back away from the boy's chains, to turn his direction immediately from the kunais only to get hit and attacked by Kakashi. Followed by Naruto using some shadow clones to help out, making this fight quite in their favor. Especially when Naruto will signal Sakura, with Sakura distracting Zabuza with her kunai and Kakashi getting some hits along with Naruto, the missing ninja was having a rough time dealing with the two of them. But it was starting to show when the hidden mist jutsu or the fog began to disappear and making it easier to see things. And when it did clear up and Sakura, having more visual of the battle, was working overtime to throwing her kunais at Zabuza in timing with Naruto's chains. The two showing great teamwork despite this being their first ever battle they work alongside with each other, impressing Kakashi of how in sync Naruto and Sakura were just in the short amount of minutes when they arrive. As if they can sense and see the same thing. It took a while for them to finally subdue Zabuza, using up a lot of stamina and energy to the point they were running low on steam but were glad that they managed to pull through. With some back and forth between Kakashi and Zabuza, the thing that surprised them the most is when Naruto who went and asked why Zabuza was working with a guy like Gato. The answers they received shock him, Kakashi and Sakura to the core when he announced, "It is so I can find a way to pay off my bounty. So I can see Haku again." This surprised everyone greatly and even more so when he went and explained how Haku was his daughter and that he had to separate from her when she was little, beginning to go and explain how some of the people in one village hunted him down and was beginning to attack him, to even believing he was using the girl for his own needs. Which wasn't the case, and even began training and teaching the girl about being a ninja. After a while and explaining what happened, to even getting Haku to run away. Planning to meet up with her again, Haku at that time of searching for the girl, ran into a woman. A Hyuga from the look of things and with the female being kind, had went and asked Haku if she wanted to go with her. That was the last piece of memory he saw of Haku before she disappeared from his life. When she asked if Haku wanted to live with her, I let it happen. Figuring she would be more happy with that woman than being with me. I don't know if she ever was happy living with me and if I was ever a good father to her. But deep down I knew I made the right choice. I planned on meeting with her again and check up on her. But couldn't, Zabuza said while leaning his head down, feeling his arms and legs being freed from the ninja hounds that Kakashi summoned. Naruto, who heard this along with Sakura, looked towards one another and smiled before the boy turned back at Zabuza and grins. "You don't have to worry about a thing, Zabuza," he suddenly announced while sticking his tongue, digging into his traveling bag. Making the man to lift his head up and then widening his eyes with his pupils shaking of what it was the blonde ninja was showing him. "Haku is doing just fine and is living happily at Konoha," beamed the boy. "Her adoptive mother Mia is taking great care of her and I have no doubt. Haku knows that you cared for her greatly, cause you know why." And then got a bit teary when Zabuza's eyes began tearing up. "Is because she says that thanks to you she is able to live a happy life with Mia." Sniffed Naruto as he watches the man beginning to choke up and clenching his eyes shut and began smiling, with few chuckles. She really said that? And you're not lying to me?" Zabuza asked and then watched Naruto move the photo closer to him, making the man see the smiling girl in the photo along with her mother and friends at the Ninja Academy, looking to be truly happy and carefree within the photo, as Naruto nods and says, "I am telling the truth, believe it." And grins at how Zabuza began chuckling and laughing softly, not out of spite or sadness, but true happiness and relief to hearing how that Haku is doing just fine and Eve looking to have made amazing friends, which then grins up at Naruto. "Thanks kid, thanks for easing my mind." Though before he could even ask a favor or something from Kakashi, everyone began hearing what sounded like someone tapping something hard against the bridge, too, then having everyone there gasping and whipping their attention towards the source. And saw that it was none other than Gato, who went on a spiel about how disappointed he was of Zabuza and how he couldn't take care bunch of kids, let alone unable to kill and defeat the Leaf Ninja or the Bridge Builder. Having the injured and damaged missing nin to start standing up and wobbling lightly before turning around and facing away from Naruto and the others. He then began unraveling the bandage around his mouth, panting and breathing heavily before glaring at Gato. Tears began falling from his eyes which alerted Naruto to the man, ready to change his mind of what he is about to do. Only to get shouted at, "Boy. "Give me your kunai," he suddenly requested, making Naruto to gasp and stare dumbly at him. Even Sakura, who was shaking and eyes trembling, having a gut feeling of what Zabuza was about to do next, as she covered her mouth in shock. "Give me your kunai, boy, let me finish this once and for all. I am done running, and I have no more regrets." But what about Haku? Don't you want to?" Naruto then stops and looks at Zabuza, who turned his head slightly. His face was covered in tears, but was smiling brightly to him. Naruto then clicked his tongue and gritted his teeth as his emotions were bubbling up, feeling light tears beginning to form around his eyes as he goes and opens his kunai pouch and toss the weapon forward. "What kind of dad will I be if I were to show up suddenly and still a wanted man?" was the last thing Zabuza said before darting forward and rushing his way towards Geto, followed by screams of agony and pain echoed throughout the entire bridge. "Tell Haku that I am happy for her." 3 days has passed since the battle on the bridge and the mission becoming a complete success. As Team 7 currently right now is at the end of the now finished bridge. Looking out into the large crowd of people who had come with Inari after the ordeal with Zabuza and Geto had rallied the entire village together and banded to come to fight on the bridge. "Thank you ever so much for what you did here," Tazuna began saying and grinning proudly at the group of ninjas. With Naruto beaming happily while rubbing the back of his head, Sakura smiling brightly with her hands folded behind her back, with Sasuke just brooding away and not bothering to look at anyone as Kakashi waved off the thanks. "No need to thank us, honestly it was the least we could do. Especially when we learned about the situation," Kakashi informed with a chuckle while bowing lightly at the villagers. Who laughed and chuckled out how they're in their debt and that they should come and visit whenever they have free time. "Naruto, Sakura," Inari began saying, alerting the two at the boy and blinked their eyes. I wanted to say thank you." The boy began saying, trying hard not to tear up or choke up at his words. Making the two ninjas to grin, with Sakura approaching next to Naruto. You two really helped out back there. Saving me and my mom." He began sniffling while rubbing his arm over his eyes. Making Sakura and Naruto to tear up lightly and then Naruto move his fist forward. "It was all you, Inari, you were brave back there and did your best to stopping them. If it weren't for you." Naruto stopped as Sakura moved her own fist forward and smiled. "Naruto and I would not have made it in time to stopping them from taking her or hurting you. You're a brave kid." And giggled when Inari nodded his head, then fist bump against Sakura's and Naruto's fists. Announcing out sheepishly if it was no problem. But that and saying their farewells. The team headed on back to the Leaf Village, leaving the land F waves behind them. Never forgetting their first ever time out of the village and doing their first relay rank mission, which was supposed to be a C rank. As they made their way back to the village, Sakura, who was walking and trailing a bit behind the group, began looking her way over at Naruto. "Hey Naruto?" she suddenly asked, making the boy to hum and tilt his body over at her. Then began slowing down his pace to walk in time with her. "Think I could ask something?" she asked softly and a bit nervously, watching how the boy hummed and blinked his eyes at her. Then grinned when she smiled softly at him, "Since we are done the mission and are heading back to the Leaf Village. Think you could show me what you found at that village?" she asked softly, in a way not to alert Kakashi or Sasuke. Though of course it caught Kakashi's attention as he silently looks up from his book, listening in on the conversation. Smiling behind his mask of how Sakura seems to have grown quite fondly of the boy lately. "Oh yeah sure Sakura," Naruto whispered as he then looked ahead to see if anyone was watching. "But I think it will be alright to show you the case," he grinned and had Sakura humming out. "Since well you asked and all, it's only fair." This had her once again blushing and turning bit red, feeling quite happy and delighted that Naruto is willing to trust her this much to seeing what he found. Explaining how it was inside the case, she wasn't sure why or what it is, but she is starting to like these odd sensations going through her body whenever the boy smiled. It felt like she was safe and secure around him. Of course she tried and denies any kind of feelings towards Naruto, knowing deep down her crush is with Sasuke. But whenever she thought about Sasuke, her thoughts would immediately go to Naruto. Which is confusing for her. Then shook herself out of it and scolded herself for almost believing that she is falling for Naruto. Doing her best to ignore the odd pleasurable sensation going down her spine and emitting around her lower stomach. Girl then blinked her eyes and gasped at the beautiful box which looked to have been cleaned recently. No doubt thanks to Naruto, cleaning it up and washing the box to its beautiful sapphire and ruby shine to it. With the box itself having a sleek sheen to its ruby coloring, with the lid and sides being that of sapphire. Her awe increased and smiled brightly at Naruto's own bright smile as he whispers to her. "This here Sakura is the Uzumaki scroll of sealing that's inside." After showing the girl it and placing it away, the boy went ahead and began detailing out and explaining how he came across it. With Team 7 making their way towards the village and finishing their mission, little does Naruto know and Sakura That when the boy activated and used the scroll to activate Beast Awaken Jutsu, along with the fox trying to interfere with the jutsu. The chakra that dispersed out into the air and flew across the skies. That actually seek and seep itself into couple of people in Naruto's life, who will later on become the precious people of his life. Which one of them is right now with him, unaware that night? It had seeped into Sakura during her sleep, while the rest of the chakra had gone out and explored for other candidates, to which 4 of them were living at the Leaf Village. As Naruto's life and future is only beginning. At night after returning from the Land of Waves and finishing up their mission. 2 girls at this moment were having erotic dreams that was filling them up with pleasure and amazing feeling that they couldn't help but mew lightly in their sleep. Turning once in a while and tossing about as the sensation going through their spines is sending wonderful sensations that they were beginning to breathe heavily. One of the girls was Hinata, who was moving about and having her bed covers get slightly pulled away from her body. Her hands were beginning to move and roam about on the mattress, moaning out a name. As she began trailing her hands around her stomach and waistline. Naruto. She mumbled in her sleep as her breathing was beginning to pick up and the heat inside of her was beginning to burn immensely. Her fingers dance and move about around her stomach and lower abs now, moving and scrunching up her nightgown higher. Exposing more skin and her belly button to the world as her chest was heaving in and out. Naruto so good, she continued moaning out as she bit her lip gently. Her right hand beginning to move downwards and grabbing lightly around her night pants hems. The same thing was happening to Sakura as well. The girl with her dreams were somewhat similar to Hinata's, the person in her dreams had the girl pinned against the wall. Having her lean and pull her head away from them with tight shut eyes, she moaned out as she began moving and pressing both her hands against her own body. Removing the somewhat pajama buttons away from her pants and shirt, then pulling the shirt apart. Shivering from the night air brushing against her exposed body. Her legs and knees constantly moving up and down, throwing the covers right onto the floor. Unaware of the name she was calling out in her sleep, with her head pressing tightly against the side of the pillow. "Nah, Naruto, not so rough." She moaned out in her sleep. Letting more and more of her pants to slide down against her legs, revealing her pink polka dot panties to the world. While Hinata had completely removed her nightgown from her upper body, exposing out her purple-laced bra to the world as her breasts bounced and heaved heavily from her increased breathing. Her left hand digging and caressing roughly against her left double D-cupped breasts. Kneading it and tugging at it, with her back arching and slamming against the bed. "Ooh oh. Naruto, please harder, suck on them." Moaned Hinata with a sensual and excited tone. Her hand continued rubbing and even beginning to clip her bra off in her sleep, causing the large orbs to bounce freely and sink right into her 5 fingers, making her face turn even darker red. Her other hand that had succeeded to move and with help of her legs, removed her night pants and began slipping her hands into her lace panties. Fingering and rubbing ever so gently against her womanhood. Forcing her to arch her back narrow. "Naruto, more." Moaned Sakura in her sleep, both hands deep within her panties, her legs and knees wildly going up and down. Forcing her pelvis to move upward and down against her hands, having fingers from both hands to rub furiously at her womanhood. Rocking left and right, with bit of drool coming out from her mouth. Why you know how to pleasure me so good?" mewed the pink hair girl. Beads of sweat were beginning to trail down her forehead, squeaking and yelping lightly when her fingers were beginning to slide in and out of her womanhood. Tilting her body just enough so that she was facing down at it while her ass was up in the air. Humping and rocking forward and back as if someone is thrusting into her. Hinata is in the same motion, but with her legs spread out instead, while her left hand continued squeezing and even pumping against her left breast, while the other hand inserted 2 fingers. Humping up and down against them, the need of release getting best of the 2 girls. As they continued moaning and heavily breathing hard from their motions. Feeling of that sweet release coming very fast and quick, considering this is sort of their first time ever masturbating. The 2 girls felt their release coming quicker than they thought, with both of them rising one body high into the air with a sharp inhale of air. While the other girl pushes down hard against the mattress, 2 then gasping and breathing heavily into the air. Sweat covering both their hair and foreheads, before both girls shot their eyes wide open, then shooing straight up on the bed. One filled with panic and worry, while the other yes panic but slight daze of euphoria from what just happened. "That I just dreamed," Hinata began saying and having a small smile crossing her face. "Naruto doing that?" With Sakura finishing the last thoughts of Hinata with a scared tone behind her voice. 2 then both blushing beet red when they pulled their hands out from their panties. Sakura eyes shrunk drastically and began freaking out a bit of what just happened. Before it was too much for the girl and had passed out on the bed. While Hinata, who took it a bit more comfortable, blushed terribly of the action she just did and went ahead to try and clean up whatever mess she made, while hopefully removing any smells her little wet dream may had her doing. Once done and going back onto her bed, still feeling that euphoria of excitement and knowing she had a wet dream about Naruto. The girl gave a content sigh and snuggled into her pillow some more, softly saying Naruto's name and went to bed. Morning has arrived for the next day, sunny skies and warm sunshine blanketing Konoha. Things were definitely looking good and promising a perfect day. This can't be happening. Well, almost a perfect start, as Sakura's voice was somewhat loud enough to be heard from her open window, having some of the villagers who were walking by the building to stare in the general direction before shrugging and continuing their day. No, 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 Sakura bellowed softly to herself while staring down at her bed. Panicking and hyperventilating at what she really wished was a dream, but turned out to be true. Spotting multiple dare she say wet spots on her covers and blankets, evening having disrobed to nothing at all. Having her panties on the bed as well, which looked to be soaked too. I didn't. There is no possible way that I could have, she began saying openly while collapsing to her knees and stared vacantly at her floor. 2 Then covering her mouth and shut her eyes tight. Did I seriously had a wet dream about Nar, then shook her head rapidly. That can't be true, it just can't be, though the evidence speaks for itself. Once she sat upright and faced forward, clear as day right in front of her. She had quite the dream about the boy too, apparently, making her feel hot and horny in her sleep. That she actually masturbated in her sleep about him, her young 15-year-old teenager who is about to hit 16 next year. Masturbated to one of the low-scoring and ranking kid in the academy. And not as whoever the Uchiha kid's name was. Wait, Sakura widened her eyes. Trying hard to figuring out who it was that she originally had a crush on. It was an Uchiha, right? She thought and crosses her arms over her naked body. Before closing her eyes, fighting every memory of what that boy's name was. It not just Naruto who I am thinking about, right? It couldn't be, there must have been someone else I had a crush on, right? Then felt that tingling sensual feeling going down her spine when she mentioned Naruto's name, even gasped with bright face. 2 Then shooting her arms downward to cover her womanhood from it tingling from just the name alone. In which had Sakura whining and groaning heavily, feeling of dread that she was starting to fall in love with the knucklehead ninja. Kami, what are you doing to me? There no way I would be. Then shook her head rapidly before growling in irritation. No matter how many times she tried to deny it. Her body will tingle, shiver and send pleasuring sensations throughout her body. She even gasped at the sight of her flat chest's nipples, getting hard and erect whenever his name comes up. She figured to file all of this away and just get started on her day after all. Kakashi has given Team 7 a break from missions, stating how they're free to do some D ranks in their time or improve on their skills. To which Sakura figured to go and get started on that, standing up from the floor and deciding staying in the nude wasn't productive. She began cleaning up the mess she had made in her sleep, replacing everything on the bed and heads to her drawer, before coming to a stop in front of a full-body mirror. Looking herself over in her naked form, silently scanning over her body and began placing her hands against herself. Before trailing upward towards her still erect nipples, biting her lips lightly while having a defeated expression on her face. Why couldn't they get bigger? When will they stop growing? Hinata's voice rang out. We see the girl at the Hyuga compound and her room, nice and furnished bedroom with purple carpeted floor, transparent curtains at the window, with some stickers placed around the outer side of the windows. With some pictures here and there, thanks to upbeat young sibling wanting to decorate her Nichan's bedroom in her words. Hinata, who like Sakura and after getting out of bed this morning, was looking herself over in front of her full-body mirror, nothing but in her silky purple bra and silky purple panties. Cupping and grabbing her large mounds with her hands. Having somewhat a defeated look in her eyes, she could sworn that her boobs had grown even more. Bad enough they wouldn't stop having a growth spurt at the age of 13, now she's 15, and they're nearly ranging into E-cups. The girl softly and gently lift both breasts up, forming quite the cleavage within her bra, and then letting them go. Watching them bounce with restraints, before coming to a comfortable stop. Making her sigh and tilt her body to the right, taking note of how her figure was beginning to form a womanly-like shape, to even seeing that her hips and rear, despite them not being plump or big. But she thanked Kami they weren't, saw how they would even out to support her growth. Making her to sigh and face back forward, blinking her lavender eyes and gently comb a hand through her short hair, that spikes up lightly from the back and smiles softly. Oh well, she said to herself while moving about and grabbing pair of clothes for the day. Long it doesn't bother Naruto-kun, then I shouldn't worry too much. Giggled Hinata, fighting back a moan when she felt sexual sensation going down her spine from just mentioning or thinking about the blonde crush of hers. Enjoying it way too much as she had to grab herself from getting too excited or start rubbing her thighs together. Then shook her head to fight back the sensation and get dressed for the day, hearing footsteps out in the hall. "Nichan, you dress yet?" shouted a young voice in the halls, having a playful tone in their voice. Having Hinata to giggle happily, knowing exactly what her little sister Hanabi will do if she said yes and opens that door. So. Not wanting to feel the girl glumping and rubbing her face into her bra, cover breasts or wrap her hands around her lower waistline. Hinata was sure to get her clothes on and ready for the day, secretly giggling to herself of how upset or mopey Hanabi will be once she says yes. "Hanabi, you can come in." Hinata called out to her and was heading over towards the door. Nearly laughing loudly when she heard a whine, but squeak out in surprised when Hanabi turned things around. Throwing the slider door open and with wide-eye smile expression, lunges at Hinata with a cute voice, "Ni-chan." And glumps right against the girl. Burying her face into Hinata's covered breast, giggling and laughing lightly at Hinata's surprised tone before laughing with the little girl. Who then lifted her head up with a smile. "What you planning today, Ni-chan?" she asked with a cute tilt of her head. Not removing herself from the hug and laughed some more when Hinata was trying to make her way out the door, with bit of a struggle. Especially when the young girl wrapped her legs around Hinata's lower body. Earning some more laughter and giggles from Hanabi, with Hinata grunting out or groaning. Trying her best to make it out the door, but could not get much distance with the girl hanging off from her. Was going to meet up with my team and see what kind of training we can do," mentioned Hinata, who let out couple breaths before blushing bit from Hanabi. Letting out a suspicious hum and rests bit more against her sister's breasts. "You sure, cause whenever you do say that, it usually means the opposite," grinned Hanabi, continuing to hang on to her sister as they made their way to the foyer and kitchen of the household. Even saying hello to Niji, who walked past them and happily nods to them and continued his way forward, ignoring the plea of help from Hinata. As the boy had learned many times during his living among the two. Never get in the way of Hanabi wanting to be with her sister. The girl can be quite scary when she starts glaring daggers at you for an entire day or a week. For constantly interrupting her wanting to be with Hinata, or in her words her Ni-chan. Niji decided to respect it and not get the young girl's wrath. Hadn't heard a rumor about how Hanabi one day got so annoyed by one of the Hyuga teachers. Who constantly took her away from Hinata. That she kept pulling pranks after pranks on the teacher, to the point he couldn't take it anymore and quit. Granted, Hanabi apologized and was explaining to the teacher how she rarely gets time to be with Hinata. "Hey Niji Nai-san, you think Hinata is actually going to go and see her teammates?" shouted Hanabi, causing Hinata to panic and whips her hands over the young girl's mouth. To prevent her from saying anything else or mentioning about wanting to go and stalk Naruto, but had to throw her hands away from Hanabi. Who had gone and licked her hands in order to free her mouth. Who then run away in a giggling fit to hide behind Niji. Who lifted an arm and stared down at the 13-year-old girl while then looking up in thought with closed eyes. Getting a huge blush on Hinata's face. Well, that is a possibility she might be telling the truth. Oh, how he loves messing with his cousin, whose face continued to become redder and slightly purple as he grins teasingly at Hinata. But I also think she might go and stalk Naruto again. Despite what's coming up this month. Then both him and Hanabi shielded themselves when the girl let out a fright yelp and began scolding them. How she doesn't stalk Naruto-kun, just observing him and seeing how he is doing, all the while throwing knickknacks at the two laughing family members and began stomping past them, then glared at them when one of them was about to speak. But shut their mouths and tried their best to stifle their laughter. Oniji, who calmed down and cleared his throat, raised up a hand. But honestly, Hinata-san, Hanabi in a way is right. Next month is the Chunin exams, it might be best to try and get some training done beforehand. Or you will feel sorry about it when they come. Then began walking with the heiress and young Hanabi to the kitchen, but in knowing how Naruto is. Back when he did visited us, you could probably then look at her softly and with curiosity in his eyes, if it will help push the two being together more. Ask him to be your training partner. Having Hinata looking down in thought with a light blush, before snickering from Hanabi adding her 2 cents. Yeah. I don't know much about the boy or what he is like, but from what I hear. He is quite obsessed with wanting to improve himself and train least. Then thumbs at Niji, who walked around the table and sat down. That's what Niji says, so why not Ni-chan? Give it a shot, what do you got to lose? Giggled Hanabi as she bowed to her dad, with Hinata doing the same and plopped herself down on a chair. Hiashi, the head of the Hyuga clan, also began sitting down. But raised a brow at the curious conversation the trio were having or discussing between one another, looking towards his eldest daughter. Who let out a low sigh and groaned, shaking her head. I want to try and ask Naruto-kun to be my training partner, I don't think it. Give it a shot, Hiashi suddenly blunted out with a shrug of his shoulders. Making Hinata to whip her head up at him. The boy could use some training in taijutsu and learning some basics about fighting stances. Then pour some tea into his cup, laughing. Granted, he can be random with his fighting style, but I have no doubt that the two of you will benefit greatly by being training partners, then smile at her. I have no doubt Naruto will happily accept your offer, especially if that sensei of his is only going to teach and train Sasuke for the future Chunin exams. To which Hinata was about to protest, only to sweat drop at the deadpan expressions everyone suddenly had on their faces, then look at her in unison saying. Second thought, ask him Hinata. Thus here she is out on the streets of Konoha, hoping to go and find Naruto. The girl was really nervous about asking Naruto to be her training partner. But after the strong argument with Hiashi and Niji, both saying how they have been hearing lately from Gai Sensei or some of the ninjas around the area, that they constantly been seeing Kakashi bringing Sasuke to someplace to train without either Naruto or Sakura. Thinking or believing that two of them will be kind of a waste of time training, but the other half being because of him being the last Uchiha. The council and those who will be coming to the village will be wanting to see how skilled and great the Uchiha clan was, and since Sasuke is the only sole survivor of said clan, Kakashi is purposely avoiding the other two teammates of his in order to make the boy strong and powerful. Which this had Hinata huffing lightly and leering a bit ahead of the road. It is quite a strong argument too, no doubt Naruto-kun sensei will do that. I never understood or understand what makes Sasuke so special. Heck, she had to groan at the many fangirls that were always talking about him at school. Sakura being the worst of them. Ino used to be too, but when Mia brought Haku into their lives, the platinum blonde began changing and seeing the bigger picture. Hinata couldn't help but laugh and giggle at the many times instead of dragging her to talk about Sasuke, she would drag the heiress with her and asks if she wanted to hang out with Haku. Her way of making an excuse of not wanting to hang out with the fangirls and wanting to get close surprisingly herself and Haku. Then blushed while looking up towards the sky, not paying attention to where she was going as fond memories began taking over her thoughts. Course once Ino began explaining to Haku about my crush to Naruto, the two of them have been nothing but helping me get over my shyness and get close to him. Then closed her eyes, feeling a pleasant sensation going out her body and giving her a warm and fuzzy feeling when Naruto was brought up. I miss those days where Naruto-kun would come and hang out at the Hyuga compound. The sighs and hang her head down, course no thanks to the Hyuga council, who had slight disdain for Naruto. Had him scared and worry about visiting more often. Because of that one incident of the land of cloud or land of lightning ninjas tried to kidnap me. She couldn't continue her train of thought, the girl also wasn't watching where she was going. Bumped and ran into another person, causing both of them to stumble backwards and shake their heads. Hey, watch where you're Hinata. The voice was bit angry, but quickly turned sweet of who it is they bumped into. Having Hinata to look up and smile at who it was, then lightly groaned on the inside as whom it was she bumped into. Long time no see, how are you doing? Doing great I hope. Giggled Sakura while tilting her head to the right, folding her hands behind her. I am doing fine Sakura, just got back yesterday after a mission. Hinata explained, hoping to speed this conversation and greeting up. Without having to hear anything Sasuke related, if you then paused and nearly stopped a step forward when Sakura giggled out and grinned teasingly. Going to go and find Naruto-kun I presume? Sakura asked with a blush, making Hinata to raise a brow. Wondering when did Sakura began calling Naruto-kun. Though giggled as that was stupid to think, he is her teammate, so maybe she was beginning to become more friendly to him. As the girl opened her emerald eyes and lifts a finger. If you want can come with me to see him, smiled the girl and grabs onto Hinata's hand, who began to protest or being modest about that being alright. Nonsense. I need someone to walk with me anyway, I haven't been able to find Ino anywhere. Explained the Haruno girl, who was doing everything in her power to ignore the drive of actually wanting to go and meet Naruto, hang out with the boy and see what he is up to. But couldn't find Ino, considering her, Haku are busy with Mia's sensei training. I doubt she will have free time. Then turned with a teasing smirk at the blushing heiress, who was doing her best to keeping up with the girl. And have no doubt Naruto will be glad to seeing you again. She exclaimed, watching the way Hinata's entire body shook and shiver at the mention of him being glad or happy. To seeing her again, since they haven't reunited at all ever since graduation. What do you say? Well, I guess it couldn't hurt. Hinata began saying little out of breath. From the whole trying to catch up with Sakura. The pink-hair ninja noticed and happily slows down for her and lets go of her hand while facing forward and snicker when Hinata bashfully tapped her fingers together. Was going to ask Naruto-kun if he wanted to be my training partner for the rest of the month. This had Sakura humming and blinking of her eyes curiously. Next month. She repeated, what's coming next month that Hinata wants to train with Naruto-kun for the rest of this month. She thought plus whined on the inside as the word kun kept entering in her vocabulary for the boy. And the constant hotness around her pelvis continuing to burn and irritate her whenever his name comes up. Oh, what's coming next month Hinata? That you want to spend the entire of this month with him? Hinata stared lightly at Sakura, hearing the light sad tone in her voice. Making the girl very suspicious now of what's truly going on. Is she getting upset about me and Naruto-kun spending the entire of this month together training? Hinata asked herself as the two continued walking down the yellow dirt road of the shopping district, then tuning towards a corner. Heading for the now residential area of Konoha. Watching and hearing many types of voices and people walking about or shouting to one another. With hammers and saws being heard in the distance as people were extending or adding expansions to couple of houses or hotel rooms. Even adding more apartment rooms for those looking for a place to stay. Children running about and giggling, with some of civilians chatting and laughing to one another. Saying hellos once in a while to the two walking girls who waved back at them and continued their trek to where Naruto might be. Hinata. Sakura suddenly spoke up as she walks alongside the girl, who hummed back in response while feeling bit worried of Sakura's different stature. Yes. Back when we're kids at the academy, before the graduation. Sakura began talking as she goes looking down at the ground. Making the heiress next to her to hum lightly and getting a suspicious look on her face. Think you could tell me what Naruto was like? She asked and then raises her hands in defense. Not that I am interested or curious of the knucklehead lifestyle. She quickly correct, getting a giggle from Hinata. I don't know much about him currently or how he was in the past. Sakura chuckles sheepishly while rubbing the side of her cheek. I figured just out of curiosity because of being my teammate, how he was in the past. Since I mostly know that he is annoying, loves to get attention and boast a lot when we were kids, or gets into trouble a lot with the teachers. This had Hinata nodding while sighing lightly. Honestly Sakura, I think it was the teachers who gave Naruto a hard time. Well, purposely not helping him, except for Iruka. I don't know Sakura, it is a lot to understand how he was in the past. Hinata stated lightly while scratching the side of her cheek, laughing lightly. The one who spent the most with Naruto in the past was Ino and Haku. Only time he spent with me was at my house during a misunderstanding he had with one of the children. Tricking him into thinking my family had kidnapped me. She laughed, which had Sakura laughing bit loudly and with pure happiness behind it. Not one of making fun of him or Hinata, but out of pure fun. That even made Hinata giggle and laugh with her, recalling Ino telling her how contagious Sakura's happy laughs were. Before they became rivals with Sasuke or started breaking their friendship. Really? That does sound like something Naruto then widened her eyes and darted Hinata. Did he actually thought you? She asked while lifting a finger. Then felt her heart fluttering for odd reason, including Hinata's when she nodded and had quite the loving look on her face. Even feeling heat rising between her legs and chest as she fondly remembers that day. Yup, he was able to sneak into the Hyuga compound and avoid most if not lot of Hyuga's Byakugan. That he found me and me thinking it was a game. And literally falling in love with him at the time, especially when we held hands. She said / thought. Making Sakura to have a fond smile and a pleasing look as the girl recalls her time with the boy during his escapades in the Hyuga household. Laughing here and there with the girl while making their way towards his apartment building. Then gasp at the mention of how even Neji joined in the fun, thinking it was a game as well and played the role of guardian. It was kind of sweet and heartwarming to hear how Naruto, despite the disadvantage he was in as a kid, managed to get past every Hyuga's minus Neji and then Hinata's father, that after the whole ordeal. Well, he actually enjoying the way the boy brought his family together and having a fun time. Openly welcomed the Uzumaki into the compound. After a while and discovering he wasn't at his apartment room or Ichiriku's ramen shop. With help of Tucci, who explained and told the girls that he was at the shop earlier asking for some help with a jutsu, he was having trouble learning from his scroll. This which had Sakura wondering if it was the Uzumaki scroll that Naruto is learning from. Went towards Team 7's training ground. But that destination in place, while being handed some snacks for breakfast. The girls headed off once more, with Sakura leading the way to the training grounds. Wait, really? Hinata exclaimed in excitement as they were now outside of the village and into a more open space and fields. Where Naruto and Team 7 trained at or graduated at becoming full-fledged ninjas, Naruto-kun found a scroll belonging to the Uzumaki clan. Hinata said with excitement and happiness. Making Sakura to giggle and nod. Yeah, he didn't show me the scroll of course. Which I understand, Sakura said with a shrug of her shoulders and placing her hands onto her hips. But he did show me the box it was stored in, and have to say Hinata, it looked beautiful. She explained, laughing at the now highly curious look Hinata had on her face as they made their way deeper into the fields. Unaware of what kind of jutsu Naruto was practicing or using. Please Sakura, don't stop there, what did the box look like? Hinata asked in earnest, leaning bit closer to the Haruno. Who snicker and place a finger on Hinata's forehead and push her back, getting giggles from her. Nagomen, Hanabi is starting to rub off onto me. Of being highly curious about stuff. Hinata said sheepishly rubbing her neck lightly. No worries, Ino was like that too. Snicker Sakura as they came to a stop. Figuring resting from walking will do some good before they continued forward. All the while being near Naruto, who was beginning to use the chakra chains jutsu. But for what the box looked like. It was amazing. Hinata, the base of the box itself is that colors of ruby, not at all losing its sheen or glow when the sunlight hits it. Which then snorted with a high head. Making Hinata snicker, figuring that Naruto may have cleaned it or asked for help cleaning it. Of course was cleaned up and washed to its original state, from Naruto. With some help from me. Then deflated her ego and stuck her tongue out playfully. Of course giving him info of what type of cleaner to use. I didn't clean the box. Sakura, Hinata watch out. Naruto's voice screamed out to them in urgency. Causing the girls to blink their eyes and then turn towards his directions. Before widening their looks at the oncoming golden light chains rushing right towards them. Hi! Both screamed out and felt the golden chains, wrapping and binding around them. Pinning against their stomachs and upper bodies tightly, forcing their arms and legs to spread out a bit. While feeling the cold yet warming sensation of the chains, slipping and going inside of their shirts. With a few slinking their way around their thighs and legs, circling them and lifting them up into the air. Naruto. You jerk, cancel out the jutsu. Sakura tried to scold out but felt a moan escaping her lips. When some of the chains loop around her thighs and towards her back, rubbing roughly up against her womanhood. Two even going between her butt cheeks, causing her sleek-like pants to form outlines of her figure. Nah, Naruto-kun, please. Hinata moaned also as she felt the chains within her shirt beginning to constrict and wrap around her large breasts. Causing the bra to be lifted on the inside, having her nipples get rubbed and caressed from the warm sensation. While feeling the chains massaging and rubbing against them, but also giving light squeezes. Ooh, oh, please have it stop. The two girls pleaded out, but at the same time and odd reason. Didn't want the sensation to stop. It felt really good and the warmth of the chains was even having this odd event. Feel quite nice and comfortable that their faces were beginning to turn deeper red. While doing their best not to look down at Naruto, even though Hinata was sneaking glances down at him, hoping that her moans and pleas were turning him on or least having him look at her. While Sakura, who was struggling between of wanting to beat the living hell out of the boy. While the other half was hoping she was getting the boy's attention towards her. Then they both let out squeals of surprise when the chains began moving them about and posing them in now a more provocative positions or showing a more revealing position. I am trying, girls. I am really sorry, but I am having a hard time canceling the jutsu. Naruto called out as they saw the chains, after getting good look. Were seen to be coming out from the back of the boy and extending outward towards them, moving and adjust themselves in a way that the chains won't hurt the caster when getting close to them. Sakura was about to speak but couldn't and felt a lump in her throat, feeling the chains literally lifting her higher up and having her lay backwards in the air. Spreading her legs outward to show her tight shorts forming snugly against her body. The chains that managed to slip through the leg sleeves can be seen coiling and rubbing along her thighs and upper thighs to where the chain that loop on the outside. Pushing and pressing roughly between her womanhood, having the shorts outline the folds and the chain that was constantly rubbing and sliding up and down between her folds and butt cheeks. Were pushing heavily against her shorts, with them being squished and rubbed affectionately from the inside, the chain being visible through her shorts. As she moans and squeals out in pure pleasure and bliss, trying so hard to ignore the bottling emotion and the neater drive to call out Naruto's name. Hinata though in her mind was enjoying it greatly, which she was questioning why that is. For her the chains had actually made the girl lay frontwards in the air. With her brown coat zippers becoming undone and opening up widely. To show off the black sleeveless shirt of hers and dangling large breasts, hanging downward and swaying wildly. Before the chains that were inside of her shirt, with her bra falling out from her, to having her breasts with no shame of pushing her shirt even further outward. And be seen getting coiled up and tightly wrapped by the chains, pushing both boobs outward and inward into the girl's chest. Her nipples poking and pressing lightly into the shirt. Having the girl gasp and moan out with constant pleasure, unable to help herself when the constant rocking forward and back. From the chains holding her arms and legs, were beginning to coil even more around the girl's limbs. Two then snaking their way inside her pants sleeves, reaching straight up towards her panties. Though thankfully unlike Sakura, who likes to wear tight shorts. Hinata was spared the embarrassment of the chains showing or revealing a camel toe towards Naruto. But did not help the girl when one of the chains loops around it from the outside and began rubbing and caressing into the girl. Naruto-kun. Naruto. Both girls moaned out, one with pure bliss, while the other was mixture of bliss and anger. As the chains continued with their movements and rubbing. Hinata's boobs bouncing wildly and faster from the coiled chains trying to move or tire out the girl by rocking her forward and back, becoming quite horny and wet from the way they pleasured her and rubbing against her covered womanhood. No doubt she would have to get another pair of clothes when this is over, or at least dry them off. Sakura was the same and threw her back out when the chains began slipping into her shirt and began coiling more and moved around her body and skin. causing her nipples to be flicked and pressed into her chest, to even getting pinched when the chains tried wrapping them. But what she was most embarrassed about and feels somewhat ashamed of enjoying the pleasure, she was afraid that she was wet down there and it was going to be shown towards Naruto if he didn't stop this. Though before they could hear Naruto and somewhat glad, he wasn't even paying attention to them or their slight moans and somewhat pleas of continuing, they heard him saying how the chains might stop if they purposely not resist the chains and get completely caught by the chains, tricking them that they became useless to fight back. As that's how it worked when he managed to surprise the thugs back at Land of Waves and render them useless. It will cancel out on the girls, though his face went completely red and eyes shrank when heard the girls let out a loud sexual moan. From unable to handle it anymore and went limp in the chains, to which the chains completely snared them up and deemed them unable to fight back. While placing them back onto the ground below, with both girls breathing and panting heavily with red faces. One arm over their bodies and the other on the grassy ground, legs still somewhat spread out and their clothes tussled about. Thinking to themselves of how great that felt, while having slight dazed look in their eyes when they heard Naruto, before moaning and guilty releasing a bit of how the chains will disappear if they trick them in believing they couldn't fight back. The tired response he got from them was, good to know. After a while and regaining their strength back to their bodies. Naruto, well, he learned the hard way of not ticking Sakura off like usual by getting pummeled badly from the kunoichi. Who was rubbing her wrists lightly and having closed eyes, breathing and huffing angrily at what just transpired. Let alone what happened at the end of the whole escapade with the chains. It's too late now to go back and change. Ugh, the stupid jerk, now Hinata and I have to walk with uncomfortable clothing. She thought to herself as she was doing her best to adjust and stretch out her tight blue shorts from giving her a rash. Watching the injured and slightly bruised knucklehead, apologizing over and over towards the two. Honestly, I deserve it on the account, did not expected anyone to come see me. Naruto stated lightly, getting both girls to blink their eyes. With Hinata struggling lightly behind a tree to getting her bra on and even getting the clip to work. But discarded the fabric with frustrated sigh, then pocketing it as it will be troublesome to get her bouncing boobs into it. Before walking out and approaching the duo, with Naruto injuries somehow magically disappearing when he hopped onto his feet. Grinning, I mean with everyone being busy with missions and whatnot. I figured it'd be just myself today. He announced, making Sakura and Hinata to have light blushes on their faces. Before getting rid of them when he had a questioning gaze. By the way, why are the two of you here? He asked with a curious tilt of his head. Watching Sakura, who was the first to react, sigh in annoyance and pouted. What couple of girls can't come and check up on their friend? She stated playfully while sticking her tongue out at the boy. Making Naruto to snicker, even getting Hinata to giggle as well. Never knowing how amazing their friendship was for only being on a team for a whole month. Honestly though, this is when Sakura smiled brightly and leans forward, folding her hands behind her back. Considering you told me about that scroll, which hope you don't mind me of informing Hinata. She said while nudging at the heiress. Who squeaked out and smiled blissfully when the boy turned at her, then smiled brightly. No problems here. I actually was going to look for Hinata today and ask her if she could help me with this jutsu I am learning. He suddenly said, getting Hinata's lavender eyes to widen greatly and began feeling heat rising in her face. This with Sakura, however, feeling tinge of jealousy of how the boy was going to look for Hinata. Instead of asking her for help, but quickly change it to a teasing smile. Oh, why is that, Naruto? Then leans close to his face, making the boy to sweat drop nervously. Thinking of trying to woo her over with this jutsu of yours, in a way of asking her out. She teased and laughed happily at the panic look he has right now. Along with how red his face is, while Hinata felt dazed and bit wobbly, thinking over the fact of the boy actually doing that. Naruto took couple steps back as he felt wind blowing in the fields, whipping up some of the leaves into the air as he drastically waved his hands. Whoa, did it, he tried to explain or make an excuse that it wasn't the case, but deep down, and how Sakura even knew. It was exactly what he was going to do. After he got help from Hinata and learning the bubble bomb jutsu, to even mastering it. He would ask if the girl wanted to either train with him or hang out with him for the rest of the day. Seeing the expression and the boy doing a poor job of coming up with an excuse. Had Sakura lowering her eyes a bit and then hide her emotion by smiling and standing upright. Well. Seems like our dead last Naruto had actually planned ahead and was going to bravely ask you out. Hina, she turned towards the girl, only to blink her eyes as she saw her nowhere. Hinata. Then looks down after hearing what sounded like squeaks and soft-spoken words coming out from the passed-out girl. Nah, Naruto-kun, was stuttered the Hyuga heiress. Having Sakura and Naruto to look down at the collapsed girl and then at each other. Before Sakura grinned teasingly at the boy, who sheepishly back off a bit and shrunk his head into his jacket. Be glad she's a patient girl, Naruto, if it was anyone else. They would be quite impatient of you approaching them or not noticing their signs. Snicker Sakura, enjoying the way the boy groaned/whined at how much teasing he was getting from Sakura. While closing his eyes and hang his head down in defeat, the girl watching the way his whisker mark moved downward with his expression, finding it quite cute. After finally getting Hinata back on her feet and the waking world, along with getting her to adjust with what just occurred, heard how Naruto was originally going to ask her out after she helped him with the new jutsu from his scroll. To which the Hyuga girl happily agrees and says she will help out in any way possible, having Naruto boast cheerfully and jumping up in victory. Making Sakura to shake her head and chuckle, she has to admit. There is quite a charm with Naruto, especially when it came with training. "Hey Naruto, do you have the basics down or at least the hand signs for the jutsu?" Sakura asked with a tilt of her head. Having the boy who was making his way over to the lake with Hinata, who also stopped to look at her and then Naruto. The boy gave a thumbs up, yup. Then sheepishly rubs the back of his head. Surprisingly, it only require like 4 different hand signs before executing the jutsu. He informed and crosses his arms when both girls asks what part of the jutsu he was having trouble on. Which he hums and purses his lips to the side. Well, originally it was getting an idea of the bubble feeling like soap, which no doubt. Then thumbs randomly at the village. "You two got word from Tucci and Am of how they helped me out with the soap part." Which they nodded and Hinata giggled when the boy resumed walking towards the lake with a happy stride. "The part I am officially having trouble getting is the execution part," he said while wagging a finger and spun around in place, facing the two girls. "Here, I'll demonstrate what I mean so the two of you gets a good idea." Both girls hummed and waited at their spots for Naruto to begin. Watching the ninja going through like he said, 4 different hand signs. Then moving his arms towards the side of his body and hovered both hands apart from one another and that's it. Nothing seems to be coming or appearing, they can feel the boy conjuring up chakra. But nope, nothing was happening and it didn't seem like there were any water forming between said hands. He then stops and sighs while looking away sheepishly. "I read the instructions on the scroll carefully, even where it says I can extract water from anything, but making sure I don't use my own body sweat," he informed, making the two girls hum lightly. Then shook at the thought of Naruto turning into a raisin by extracting water from his own body, no doubt the scroll forewarns this. "From the sounds of it, Naruto-kun, it seems you are having trouble controlling the chakra," Hinata informed as she goes and does her clan hand sign, closing her eyes and then opening them up. Byakugan. Thus veins appeared around her eyes, using her Dijutsu to see what the problem is. "Alright Naruto-kun, my Byakugan will let me be able to see the chakra you're trying to use for the jutsu. If you please," she smiled sweetly to the boy. Who couldn't help but blush with a nod and redo the process again. Sakura, who saw the blush and smile on his face from Hinata's sweet voice and wanting him to do the process again. Had her puffing her cheeks just slightly from jealousy, all the while shaking her head lightly. Before sitting upright on the stomp and fisting her shorts a bit. "What is wrong with me? Why am I getting so worked up about Naruto?" Smiling and blushing around Hinata. I should be happy," whined the girl as she began softening her eyes, listening faintly to the instructions Hinata was giving Naruto. "If I recall, if it wasn't for me helping him or learning how to properly divert chakra during the tree climbing exercise, we wouldn't be here," she stated and lifted her head up at the two before sighing and hang her head down in defeat. Feeling her bangs covering her facial features, watching how Hinata, whose breasts were freely bouncing about in her shirt whenever she moves and happily walks over to the lake. Teaching Naruto or explaining to him how to extra the water, but with bit of a troubleshoot explaining it in great detail. Using her Byakugan to watch the water on flow, struggling to even go and move towards Naruto. Well, she will be a better teacher than me with her Byakugan. She will be able to help determine where Naruto's least focus area or concentrated area of chakra will be at. And help him improve it from there. And getting the water to your hands is done deal, but I am not sure how exactly you're supposed to keep it solid. Hinata whined lightly while looking down slight defeat. Feeling like she failed Naruto. "Sorry Naruto-kun, feels like I can't get a good understanding." Then pauses and looks up from her shirt to Naruto. "You kidding? This is the farthest I ever gotten, so what, we can't figure out how to keep the water between my hands?" Naruto exclaimed while laughing. "Getting it to my hands is exciting enough for me." He chuckled and laughed out with Hinata, who giggled and raised a finger near her chin cutely, before then widening her eyes and smiled broadly. "Oh wait. Maybe Sakura-chan might know how to keep the water flowing," she suddenly announced, making the pink kunoichi to raise her head and blink confusingly at the duo. Watching Hinata tilt her body at the girl with a very welcoming and warm smile that made Sakura's face flushed from how cute Hinata looked suddenly. After all, Naruto-kun did told me how great you were at the tree climbing exercise and how you're able to control your chakra. Maybe you could help in this department." "Hey yeah. Naruto pumped his arm and threw them towards the ever-growing smile Sakura was having and feeling her heart being lifted in high spirits. What do you say, Sakura? It might be similar control to that of the tree climbing, then snicker and got both girls laughing at the next thing he said. And like Iruka-sensei constantly tells me, I have terrible chakra control. This and the encouragement from both he and Hinata had Sakura quickly wiping her eyes quickly before any tears were to break through. Two then hopping onto her feet and began jogging her way over, her hair bouncing happily. Sure thing Naruto, and he is right, though. Stops when she approached the two and look up and thought with one finger resting on the left side of her face. To think of it and remembering what Kakashi-sensei told us during one of our teamwork training. Then face him and points. He told us, if you recall, that ninjas who has high affinity for chakra reserves will usually have a hard time getting their chakra control mastered, then grins. Which means if you have high level reserves and not putting enough chakra into the jutsu. Then proudly leans weight onto her right leg, getting Hinata to laugh uncontrollably when the girl winked. Which means, Naruto, you're not giving enough chakra to the jutsu. Here, did you write down what was writing on the scroll before coming here? She asked while putting her hand out. Grinning and bashfully blushing when he nodded and said. Yup, you always tell me to write notes in class. So, I made sure to write notes from the scroll. Chuckled the boy and handed Sakura the thin paper, making her smile and then some more when she felt Hinata approaching to her right and leans up a bit to see what was written. Alright, let's see C-rank jutsu. Sakura read what she could of Naruto's handwriting. All she needed to read was the rank of jutsu. Which had Hinata humming lightly and thinking it over. C-rank level jutsu, that's usually about low chunin chakra to high genin chakra. Sakura said out loud, remembering reading books on this. Naruto, are you giving the exact amount? Hinata this time asked while looking to him. Then saw him nodding his head, curious if the girls will know how much input he needed to place on the jutsu. As Hinata then looked to Sakura and back to Naruto, turning her Byakugan on. Though quickly shut it off with a yelp and wincing of her eyes. Whoa, Hinata, you alright? Both Naruto and Sakura asked with concern, then sighing in relief when she nodded with a giggle. What happened when you check on Naruto's chakra levels? Sakura asked and then had a light bulb moment when Hinata said. Enough to hurt my eyes in Byakugan, meaning Naruto has lots of chakra reserves, enough so that it's quite thick to look at. Hinata then smiled and laughed when she felt Sakura rubbing her head, thanking the girl and even getting Naruto to chuckle lightly. Wondering what it is the pink kunoichi figured out and then tilt his head when she crossed her arms proudly and said. Naruto double the amount to high chunin level of chakra. It was truly astonishing and amazing for the two girls. Watching in happiness of how excited Naruto was of finally able to use the bubble bomb jutsu technique. After Sakura got the know-how from Hinata, wanting to scan Naruto chakra levels and though got bit hurt from how thick it was, but was alright, was able to relay to Sakura that the boy has incredible reserves. That Sakura figured out the reasoning behind Naruto unable to get his control good. Is because of his large reserves, required the boy to output more than low chunin chakra. So instead he needed to double the output in Viola. He is mastering the technique and using it with no struggles at all. Minus the whiplash of him flying backwards the first time and landing right into the lake behind him with a loud splash. Both girls ran forward in order to check up on him after he swam back to shore, laughing and coughing lightly. Between each cough he shouted how awesome that was and wanted to keep going. Earning a giggle from Hinata while an exasperated sigh and shrug from Sakura. And now here they are, after a while of getting used to getting the bubble forming and understanding how far back he will fly. Hinata alongside Sakura had successfully asked Naruto if he wanted to be her training partner for the upcoming month. Which the boy happily accepted and couldn't help but smile at the relief Hinata's face looked, all the while seemingly more relaxed as if having the entire world on her shoulder. Of course this had Sakura curious of why it was Hinata wanted Naruto to train. So in feeling that jealousy again bubbling up, while feeling heat rising between her legs of wanting to stick with Naruto. She went and asked Hinata if it will be alright if she can train with them. Who then blushing deep red from the girl smiling broadly at her and tilted her head cutely, saying she can so join in any time she wanted to. Making Sakura's heart and Naruto's to feel delighted and incredible from the girl. That Sakura gave her own broad smile and nods. Thus the trio began training and working out by challenging Naruto to using the jutsu of his. On the account since he just learned it and able to use it. It wouldn't be any good if he doesn't mastered it, which Sora figured that it being a mid-range type of jutsu. Be best if she and Hinata were moving targets, help the boy become more accurate with said jutsu. Poor Sakura and Naruto did not expected Hinata to go and take off her brown coat, explaining or telling the two how it wouldn't be good if that got drenched to the point. It will cause her to have a cold, though that was one of the reason they were concerned. But unaware of both Naruto and Sakura, the real reasoning behind wanting to take her coat off. is so that her black t-shirt when it gets wet will stick tightly against her large bouncing boobs and outline them during training secretly of course, wanting Naruto to look at her and her growing body. Sakura, who understand the reasoning, went ahead and slid off her pink poncho, to revealing her blue tank top underneath. Giving the same reasoning as Hinata that in the pink poncho of hers is the only thing she has related to her family crest. Making Naruto and Hinata to beam, nodding their heads while stating that makes a lot of sense. And it's her favorite clothing to wear too. She didn't want it to get damaged or water damage from Naruto's bubble bomb jutsu. After all, it isn't like he will be able to land hits on the two girls if they are running about and dodging. Boy, did she had her foot shoved to her mouth. Cause once they began and running about, keeping eye and tracks on Naruto's movements and knowing how far they needed to be between him and the jutsu. The girls who were having a blast enjoying their very small if yet effective training session with him. Can definitely see how creative Naruto can be with his jutsu, considering about 30 minutes into the training session. Hinata and Sakura were beginning to get soaked and drenched from the bubble bomb jutsu, to even getting surprised attack from the blonde knucklehead. Using Shadow's clones mixed with a water jutsu to increase his odds of hitting them were beginning to become quite accurate. And boy, is Naruto having a hard time not staring or ogling at the two girls' somewhat soaked bodies. His teenage hormones were definitely making it difficult to not stare at all, considering that since the whole incident with his chains. Along with hearing the moans and cries the two girls were having, including secretly watching the way they were being caressed and rubbed by the chains. Had the boy becoming quite distracted at their wet clothing. Hinata's breasts were heavily being pushed and pressed against her black t-shirt, watching the way they will bounce straight up and down, too, then bopping and whacking against one another whenever she comes to a sliding stop, then side jumping away from his water jutsu too, then backflipping couple of times. Having those bouncy orbs flail wildly and letting out wet slaps when she lands or moves away. Well, for Sakura. Well, let's just say that her blue tank top is definitely not one to be wet. Considering it was becoming a bit tangible for the naked eyes, showing ever slightly the bare skin underneath the top. Along with black tinted areas of no doubt where her nipples will be at. Pushing heavily against the fabric while more of her bare chest and torso were beginning to show within the top. The further it gotten wet, but know what was distracting the most. Was her tight shorts. If Naruto thought they couldn't be erotic when the chains got a hold of her. They were being erotic now as the constant splashing and getting blasted by the water jutsu were making the shorts look even more tight and slightly riding up against the girl's thighs and pelvis area. Hell, her butt cheeks, which he hopes the girl doesn't find out he was looking at her butt, were being quite visible through the pants, too, even looking be jiggling whenever she will make a jerky movement or hops away from the jutsu nearly hitting her while twirling and kneeling close to the ground. Causing her rear end to rise up in order to move with the girl's movements or yelping out and hitting the ground when she does get hit from the water jutsu. Hell, there were points where his shadow clones would shoot a rapid succession of bubble bombs towards the girls. That Hinata's shirt was almost blasted off from her top with her boobs slapping and wildly hitting against her chin. To even her shirt beginning to get pulled down more and more roughly against her body that it was exposing and showing off her upper breasts. Same situation for Sakura, who tried shielding herself by standing upward with the bubble bomb being blasted from the top of her body. Constantly raining down at her that her shorts were literally sliding on down her legs and pelvis, slowly revealing her soaked panties waistband. But the girls crying out and shouting mercy to the clone, while then coughing and spitting out some of the water from their mouths. Sakura side bang covering her entire left eye as she was breathing and coughing lightly, silently tugging and pulling her shorts up. While Hinata was hanging off from her legs and knees, lightly grabbing the shoulder part of her shirt back up her body, before she and Sakura looked to one another and then towards Naruto. Who looked to be slightly exhausted and tired, all their faces were red from light embarrassment, but also being bit turned on. Before Naruto started to break the silence and began snorting, to which had Hinata snickering and Sakura letting out low laughs, before all three of them began boasting in pure laughter of excitement and fun. Unable to help themselves but to laugh and laugh and laugh, just never knowing how much fun they would have with this little training session and helping out Naruto master his new jutsu. Their laughter was so loud and contagious that it got the ears of Team 7 Sensei and a brooding uchiha who were making their way to the training grounds. After hearing what sounded like water erupting in the distance, hey there, seems like everyone here is having a lot of fun. Excluding me out of the excitement, Naruto, Sakura Kakashi voice rang out, and then I smile, spotting Hinata there as well. And Hinata, hello, you all having fun without us? Chuckled the man while waving towards the children, who lifted their heads and face at Kakashi, with Naruto turning his attention at the man. Hey Kaka. Naruto then felt his ears ringing when Hinata and Sakura's faces went paled and let out very loud screech-like screams of panic. making the boys there to cover their ears and wince in pain from the sudden loudness, while Kakashi felt his eyes shaking as he heard Sakura and Hinata scrambling about, to then disappearing couple distance away. Shouting out how they're not decent and threw some rocks at Sasuke and Kakashi, which Sasuke easily grabs couple of the rocks and squeezed them till they were nothing but dust. The few of the rocks bouncing off from Kakashi, who went ahead and places a finger against his right ear. Trying to figure out what that was all about and why the girls screamed like that. With poor Naruto having swirls in his eyes, teetering far to the right and hits the ground. Once the girls were sure that they were dried off and had their clothes drying off. They went back to the others and sat at the nearby stumps. Walking into a discussion of Naruto, wanting to show Kakashi one of his new jutsus that he was learning and mastering today. Along with bringing in how Hinata and Sakura helped him out greatly with the said training, getting Hinata to hide herself more into her coat, while Sakura just sheepishly giggled and scratched her cheek. Before deadpanning and being annoyed when Sasuke scoffed, "Please, what those two can do to help train you?" Informed the Uchiha, making Sakura to grit her teeth and doing everything she can not to lash out or yell at the Uchiha. If I remember correctly, Hinata is too shy and bashful to put any effort into her training and ninja skills, while Sakura. But Sasuke turned towards the girl, watching Hinata lowering her head some more from the comment. Well, she can be annoying sometime. Besides, what kind of pathetic jutsu were you learning that has you tricking those two to helping? He asked with an unimpressed tone. Making Sakura to growl lightly and turn her attention to the slightly hurt Hinata, who she was about to help make her feel better and up her spirits. Only for Naruto to beating her to the punch, while including Sakura into it as well. Getting both girls to shiver heavily and biting their lips, with a whimper Hinata and a groaning Sakura of the sexual sensation that coursed through their spines when Naruto thrust his hand out. "Shut a duck ass. Sakura and Hinata were tremendous at helping me out and getting me to mastering this jutsu," he announced and swiped his arm down, grinning widely. "Enough so that I even returned the favor and helped train them, while helping me become very accurate with this jutsu." And then grins broadly. "I even bet because of their help. My jutsu can beat your fire jutsu." This had Kakashi humming lightly, impressed of hearing how Naruto, Sakura and Hinata spent this entire time together. Helping the boy mastering the said water jutsu, with him returning the favor and train with him, making the man to nod lightly, flashing towards the exhausted and soaked teens. That would explain why they were soaked and exhausted, they must have began training with one another. While helping Naruto get more practice of aiming this jutsu of his, curious. Then look at the blonde, happily and blissfully ignoring the threats that were being thrown to him from Sasuke, or more of Sasuke, denouncing how there will be nothing powerful than an elite Uchiha's fireball jutsu. Alright, how about we get this over with and see for ourselves of how powerful this jutsu is? Kakashi suddenly announced with an eye smile. I am curious myself of what this water jutsu is. That Naruto mastered, after all, then looked to Sasuke with a smug look. Wouldn't hurt to see if it is powerful then, as you would say, Sasuke. Elite Uchiha's fireball jutsu, right? This which got Sasuke glaring and gritting his teeth a bit before turning his attention towards the loser of the village. Watching the grass being softly blown by the wind, with bit of the bushes behind Naruto rustling about and shaking. He then turned towards Sakura and Hinata, who look proud and determined that this jutsu of his will in fact beat Sasuke's fireball jutsu. Whatever, let's get this over with, got lot of plans to do. And one of them is not wasting my time on a weakling. Mutters Sasuke as he got into position to using the fireball jutsu. While Naruto goes into his stance for the bubble bomb jutsu, that surprised Kakashi a bit from the stance, vaguely remembering someone using that before in his Anbu days. But can't quite point his finger on Terio it as the man sighs and shake his head. Alright then, this is just to test out your jutsu's strength, alright. I don't want any one of you meaning harm, okay? Kakashi stated towards the two, which Naruto nodded and Sasuke just grunts in response, not keeping any promises if his jutsu break free. And we are with Naruto, Hinata and Sakura heading on back into the village. Naruto with a big wide happy smile on his face. After Kakashi had gone and say go for both boys to use their jutsu. Not only did Naruto put Sasuke in his place, but he was also right about the girls helping him with learning the technique. Was able to go and use the bubble bomb jutsu perfectly, which he still flew backwards from the whiplash. It also broke and defeated Sasuke's fireball jutsu. Apparently chakra enhanced fireball, by Sasuke adding more chakra into it in order not to break through the bubble bomb. But to also to hurting Naruto and putting him in his place. Failed miserably when the bubble reached the fireball. Like with the girls, it erupted and exploded into multiple water-like needles and doused the fireball right away. I still can't believe it, that my jutsu managed to beat Sasuke's fireball jutsu. He screamed out in glee while throwing both arms above his head. Getting Sakura and Hinata to giggle lightly, though blinked their eyes confusingly. When they heard collective villagers shouting shut up to Naruto in a very well hateful way and not annoyed way. Then looked back to the boy with Hinata beginning to tap her fingers, listening to Sakura now speaking up with a curious tone. Though Kakashi-sensei was acting bit strange when he saw you performing the jutsu. All the while constantly saying how proud he is. Then moved a palm out, shifting her gaze at the two. What do you think that was about? She asked, making Naruto to cross his arms and hums lightly and staring into the sky. Hinata, who made up her mind of a decision through her thoughts. While hearing Sakura asking why Kakashi seemed odd about praising Naruto. Had the girl looking to them and then tilt her head, maybe that jutsu used to belong to a Uzumaki in the past. She said, getting Sakura and Naruto to look at her. Think about it, Kakashi-sensei might have been living in a time where there were probably no Uzumakis, right? This got the two nodding their heads in agreement, so maybe he was a close friend to one. And was happy to seeing Naruto able to learn his clan jutsu. She beamed cutely at the end while placing her hands together. Then squeak when Naruto, out of excitement, wrapped an arm around the girl's shoulder blade and hugged her close to him. You might be right, Hinata. It only makes sense for Kakashi-sensei to behave like that, right? Smiled the boy, getting a happy nod from Sakura and then pulls away. With all three of them approaching a fork in the road that will lead them all in separate directions to their clan house, apartment buildings and family home. Before they could separate, and Sakura, who stayed and turned her head at the two. Watched Hinata stuttering out and muttering rapidly through her sentence. Seemingly wanting to ask something of Naruto, but not entirely sure what. Naruto-kun, do you think you could come and visit the Hyuga household? Hinata blurted out while bowing her head down. Please. It will mean so much to me and my family that you visit. Then giggle a bit when Naruto laughed happily when the next thing she said. Father has actually been curious about your well-being and no doubt Niji will enjoy your company that isn't his teammates. Then beamed when she lifted her head, you can even meet Hanabi. Naruto, who felt sheepish and blushing embarrassingly from the girl asking him to come visit her house. Despite what has happened in the past or worried the Hyuga believing he was the cause for her kidnapping. Oh yeah, sure. If it will be alright with the family, then yeah, I would love to come and visit. Naruto exclaimed happily. Sakura, who heard this, had drowned out everything around her, making the voices muffled and mumbled through her ears. Watching silently at the two chatting away and laughing about, looking to be ignoring her. Sakura attention then turned to Naruto, having somewhat a depressed look, but also acceptance. Well, it was bound to happen, Sakura. Here you've been fighting that stupid feeling or emotion of being close to the boy. Wanting to be with him and sadly, wanting to know how it feels to having your emotions return back to you unlike Sasuke, who just rejects you every turn. The pink Kunoichi felt her hair blowing within the soft evening breeze, looking at the two one last time before turning around and began heading down the road. That will take her home, fighting back every fiber in her being of being upset or hiccuping at feeling like she was being tossed aside. Come on, get a grip, girl, why would you care? It isn't like you truly li. Then shut her eyes tightly and sucked in her lower lip as she came to a stop, shoulders stiffed and began shaking. Li Kami, why can't I say it, li. Then widened her eyes and felt her face blushing tomato red, finally dawning on her and feeling that pleasurable sensation and warmth down between her legs rising when she bit her lip. Silently speaking out, I li lo. Love Naruto. She then felt an inner gasp and slowly raised a hand up to her mouth, unable to believe what she just said. So she went and repeated again to herself and felt that sensation once more when saying, I am in love with Naruto, I love Naruto, I love Naruto, I love Naruto-kun. And began letting out a teary, loving smile as she felt the tears beginning to drip and fall on the ground. Raising her hand slowly up to her mouth as she breathed into her, with her emerald eyes shivering in happiness. I love Naruto-kun no Kami, why does it feel good saying that? Then gasped before moving and turning her head towards Naruto and Hinata. But I can't do that to Hinata. It wouldn't be fair though, blinked her eyes and quickly cleaned herself up and getting her emotion under control. Before turning around and forcing a smile on her face, I am sorry, what was that, Hinata-chan? Then blinked her eyes at the mention of Chan for Hinata, which she found odd. Her and Hinata weren't that close friends yet, but shook her head and listened to what was being said. Which had Sakura eyes bulging lightly from what was being asked, with Hinata tapping her fingers with a caring smile. I was wondering if you wanted to come as well. She beamed, making Sakura to tilt her head silently, asking why. Having Hinata raise her hand lightly, fumbling her fingers a bit. Before saying. Because you helped me, help Naruto train and learn his jutsu. All the while training with us, it will be rude if I didn't ask you to visit as well. Beamed Hinata as well, getting Naruto to grin like a fool and nodding his head. This had Sakura staring couple of times and then blinking her eyes, before smiling fondly and then widely when she felt her heart skipping beats. Of course. 12 p.m. right? She asked, getting Hinata to nod. Alright, I'll be there. She shouted in excitement, thus all three of them made their separate ways. though before Naruto could head on out to his apartment. He heard both girls letting out loud ohs, while then turning around. Making him to stare in one direction and the other, hearing both girls shouting. "Naruto, you look really adorable with the fox ears." And waved him off, making him to laugh and chuckle out happily. "Hemi adorable with fox ears? Heh, those two are definitely weird." He then paused his sentence before slowly raising his hands upward and towards where his ears were nothing. No ears at all at the side, making him start shaking and freaking out before his eyes grew to saucers and traveled his hands further up on the top of his head, feeling what wasn't there before poking out within his spiky hair. Twitching and giving a tickling sensation when the fingertips touch onto something soft and furry. Before the boy went and ran over to a nearby window of a building, then went completely white. "Nani, when did this happen?" He screamed out and made dust cloud from his mad dashing towards his apartment building. Hoping to figuring out if they were real or not once he got there, and sadly, they were indeed real. The boy moved about in the room, grabbing the Uzumaki scroll of ceiling, tears flowing down his eyes as he prays it was some after effect of the jutsu. "This can't be happening, why of all days does side effects has to kick Ian?" He screamed into the night. A crow flying by laughing and saying the words idiot as it laughed through the night. As now he will have to figure out how to explain the fox ears once he goes and visits the Hyuga household. Unaware of what the meaning behind these ears means as we are nearing the Chunin exams. The end. So how was this part? I hope you like it. And if you like it, share this part with your friends and like the video too. And don't forget to subscribe our channel for daily awesome fanfiction. Okay, it's time for me to go. Bye bye.